Next one.
All right.
All right, let's call this meeting to order today, July 21st, 2020 at 3 p.m. Establishment of a quorum be Commissioner Diaz, Commissioner Butler, Commissioner Santana. Not present is Commissioner Barnes and Commissioner Avalos. Okay. Item number 3, actually, public comment. I didn't receive any emails or anybody that wants a public comment. So we don't have anybody else. They can call the office and we can try to patch them into the meeting.
Okay.
Item number 4, consent agenda. Anything else that you want to pull out of consent agenda, commissioners?
Not me, sir.
Do I have a motion to go with, I'm sorry, the minutes of the last meeting, item number 4?
I make a motion to approve the last minutes.
Second.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Butler,
Aye.
and Commissioner Santana.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 5, discuss and take action on the financial report. So did you all have a time to look at all the financials that they were put in Dropbox?
No,
Yes.
Any questions?
I don't have any, sir.
Do you have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Ms. Butler,
Aye.
and Commissioner Santana.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 6 under regular agenda, discuss report by Chief Esparza. Commissioners, we received a letter a month and a half ago, that the state was challenging the fact that they believe they paid us more than $200,000 over what we were supposed to receive. The people that overview the collection of our taxes disagree with that. So we did send a letter denying that, and they have not replied. If they can't prove it, then they'll reimburse us the $200,000 that they're withholding. But if they do show proof and we'd have to pay them back that $200,000.
This is for who? I'm sorry, sir.
It used to be the state comptroller.
Okay.
They're
For
saying that they
sales
paid us. What's that?
For sales tax?
Yes. So they're saying that they overpaid us $200,000. We disagree with that, or the people that collect the sales tax for us don't have any record of that. So they suggested that we contest that, and we did. We will let you know as soon as we receive something back from the state.
Do we have all our paperwork in line, Chief?
They reviewed everything before they even sent it to us. It used to be tax insurance collection. Now it's called something else.
Okay.
But they reviewed everything, and they can't find any record of that money that the state is saying that they overpaid us. So all they show is what we should have been paid.
Okay.
But they said that this has happened before, so it's just the process that we have to follow. Okay.
So are they withholding the funds or we have to pay it back?
We would have to pay it back.
Okay, because you said they were withholding.
Well, that's one of the options that they would have to do, to withhold the tax or pay it back. So, but if we have to pay it back, it'd be at a lump sum to the state. So they don't have any records. They already contested that. They're going through the process to make sure that nothing is what they're showing on the records, because we don't have any records of that money. Right.
Okay.
Wally has a comment.
Yeah, just a quick question. And I use the raise my hand little signal on there.
I saw it after I saw your hand.
So my question is if this is going to be unresolved, is this for sales taxes that we received this
fiscal year?
So I would suggest one of two things, because you're either going to have to do a refund of taxes received if you've already received that and the state's requesting to check it back, or you're going to need to reserve a port. If we close this year through September 30, we have not made that payment back, you're going to need to have an appropriation set up to pay that back in fiscal year 2021. So So that's my budgetary suggestion.
That's what we're looking at. Like I said, the people that are oversee the collection of the sales tax, they went through all the books and they don't see that money there. But like I said, they said this was the second time they see an ESD get this. So they're just gonna go through the motions to say, where is that money that you say you gave us? Because it's not here.
Okay. All right, thanks.
But we will mark it on the, just like you said, Wally. Second, FRO, the renewal of the license for the FRO section of the ESD is being completed. I just had a conversation with Chief Treviso. He is only waiting for all of us to review how many members are still part of the district so we can add in the lead. It should be approved by the end of August. It's when it's supposed to renew. He said everything's on track for us to get renewal. Also, just to clarify, last month, the board approved for us to bring in $150,000 from the fire marshal's office to incorporate it into the budget. And the $25,175 that came in for the vehicle that was totaled. So $50,000 went into vehicle repair and maintenance, along with the $25,000 for the vehicle that was totaled that will allow us to replace that vehicle. And $100,000 went into the medical supplies. This was after consulting with Wally, and this is the way we broke it down, just to put it on there. Again, to clarify Commissioner Avalos' concerns, we don't have to spend that money, but it is available to us since we did bring it in for this year in case we do get into more. Right now, the district is very well equipped for all PPE. We were able to collect PPE from OEM and the border rack, so we are very well equipped at this moment to be able to handle the continuance of the rise in COVID. So I'm going through my checkpoints. Give me 1 minute. Any questions, commissioners?
No, sir.
Chief, do you have any updates on communications? I don't see a communications report in here.
Yes. Communications report is here. Good question. So as the month of June, Clint responded, got 74 call-outs. Fabens got 99. Montana Vista got 117. San Elizario got 134. Socorro got 210. And West Valley got 129. So San Elizario had 3 structure fires. Socorro had 2. And West Valley had 2. And let me see. And no responses. We had Clint with 20 no responses, Fabens with 8, Montana Vista with 0, San Elizario with 12, Socorro with 9, and West Valley with 0, for a total of 49 missed calls.
Can you repeat those? Clint 20, Fabens 8, Montana Vista 0.
San Elizario 12, Socorro 9, and West Valley 0, for a total of 49 no response calls. And the fire marshal's office issued 46 permits.
What about the, does that include all of the fireworks stands from June to July?
It is. So as of right now with the COVID, the fire marshal's office is not doing all the annual inspections that we're supposed to, just like they're following the same protocols as city. We have scaled back on going to individual businesses. We're only doing the required inspections that are required by state law, all the daycares, all the elderly homes, everything that's required for us to complete by state law for their permits, we're completing in addition to all the new construction that's coming in.
Okay. It's hailing in Montana Vista, by the way, if anybody's curious. It's a little bit distracting.
Any other questions, commissioners?
No, sir.
Chief, I know you're super busy, but would it be possible to get your report in writing in the Dropbox for next future meetings?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Chief, have you seen a decline as far as on permits and stuff that's gone down on businesses?
We've seen very minimal in the businesses that did start construction. They're kind of scaling back, and I get it. We're trying not to give a directive to all the staff is not, we don't want to kind of take these people out of business. We're trying everything we can to keep them in business. We get what's happening. This is detrimental to all of us, not only them. We are based out of taxpayer sales tax, so it's in our best interest to assist them to succeed, and that's what we're trying to do.
Correct.
Even the little mom and pops that are trying, of course, we have to look at them as we should be going back there and saying, hey, you have to pay more inspection fees, but sometimes they're not making enough money right now to pay these fees. And one of the things, do we take them out of business or do we work with them to make it work? And that's what we're doing to make it work.
Okay. Thank you.
So item number 6, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Or it's informational purposes
We need
only.
him.
Okay. I withdraw my motion then.
Item number 7, discuss and take action on expenditures exceeding $2,000 from Daco Fire Equipment, New Mexico Fire, Redburn Tire Company, Siddons Martin Emergency Group. Commissioners, I don't know if you all had time to review the expenditures over 2,000. Those are the day-to-day operations that we're having to accomplish right now to make this district continue to run, and they are part of the budget. Questions?
None.
Motion.
Do I have a motion to approve item number 7?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second. Give them all to Mike.
Sorry.
Commissioner
Just trying to
Diaz?
make this go quick.
Commissioner Diaz?
Aye.
Commissioner Butler?
Aye.
Commissioner Santana?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 8, discuss and take action on the annual physicals for all firefighters. Commissioners, as you're aware, everything's kind of been shutting down. We did have Site Med that conducted our physicals last year, called to see if we were still going to do them. They did change it a little bit. They gave us the estimate of the amount of people that we did last year. However, I think this year, a couple of more departments are trying to jump in. So it's a cost of $390 per member. As of right now, $23,540. Most departments already have their budget line item for firefighter physicals and checks on their firefighters. I'd like
What
to
was the
continue
total again?
23,540. That's for 60 firefighters that got tested last year.
How many people got tested outside of this program?
Approximately another 50. West Valley continues to go to Las Palmas Urgent Care or whatever it is that they're called now. They did shut down, so I did contact Chief Adler. He did say he was good, that they were able to get it back up and going. So these people do come to us, so they will be done here at our office instead of us having to go down to their facilities and get more exposures. And this is only for the members in the departments that are still wanting to do this. Last year
Chief,
was
I
Fabens.
remember in the last budget session from last year, we did anticipate this increase in cost for the physicals, so they should be budgeted, correct?
They did,
For all of the members.
yes. So a lot of the chiefs are asking if we're still gonna do it. As of right now, I'm looking to get this approved, but if it continues to go the way it's going, a lot of these companies are not traveling to Texas, they're not traveling outside of their territory. So if it doesn't happen, this is an item that will be not done.
Isn't it
What
a
is it?
requirement?
It is a requirement for our paid staff to get it done, but if we can't not get it done, they can, right now, they're exempting a lot of us to make sure that there's a reason why we're not getting it done. A lot of
There's like an
hospitals.
extension or exception.
It's a best practices that we get all our firefighters, our physicals done and make sure they're in healthy conditions to keep performing the duties of firefighters. But if right now, a lot of the rules are being exempted because a lot of companies aren't willing to travel. So right now, as a matter of fact, we just We literally just finished ladder testing because they had denied us and we were supposed to do this a couple of months ago. And we're waiting to see if the people that are going to do SCBA testing, which is also a requirement, if they're going to come and do it. So a lot of companies are very hesitant to come. These people, as of right now, are telling us they're going to try, and they already have set dates. But as the COVID numbers go up and they place restrictions, they might not be coming.
Chief, what is the cost between this company and Las Palmas?
It's about the same cost.
Same cost. Okay. All right.
And that was one of the questions, one of the things that I had to look with them, because I told them that I couldn't pay more than what we're paying here locally. So
Correct.
they come here locally, they bring their nurses, take out all our blood samples, collect all the specimens, send them into the lab, then they come back a second time here to our facility to conduct the actual with their doctors and talk to us about our health and what they found. So this is a good tool for all our volunteers to be able to use if they don't have healthcare insurance, for them to know that they found something that they could be detrimental to their life.
Do we know how many volunteers have had their physicals so far this year?
None. Nobody's had physicals yet this
Nobody
year.
has gotten their physicals at all this year.
Like I said, West Valley is the only one that's always ahead of the ball game. But at this time, like I said, last week I spoke to Chief Adler and he said they just said they were going to try to do ours. So hopefully he gets his done on time.
And who's in charge of coordinating the physicals? Is it the district office, you?
No, each individual department is doing their own. However, when I brought this company last year for the district employees, the chiefs from the Lower Valley wanted to do the same thing. So
Okay.
it only makes sense if they want to join in, they join in, and it's here at the district office. So, of course, with all this COVID thing, they said that the only test they're not going to do is the treadmill, because they don't want to produce firefighters that are sweating all over the treadmill and then having to disinfect everything else, but getting everything else that we were supposed to get.
So what is it that we're voting on?
To approve, because it's going to be over 2,000, to approve for us to contract with Site Med for them to do the physicals for all firefighters that we have budgeted for.
But they haven't confirmed that they're able to do them?
They confirmed last week that they're still coming. But like I said, as the numbers grow and the states place more restrictions, they might not be coming, because these people are coming out of North Carolina.
Oh, shoot.
Okay, then I just would like to make sure that the motion reflects that pending confirmation that they'll actually take place.
Yes, we will not be paying anything until such time that they're here.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Butler. You got it.
Motion?
I make a motion to approve pending confirmation that the contractor will actually conduct the physicals.
So us, ESD number 1 and ESD number 2 are going to try to use the same vendor. So if they don't do it for us, they won't do it for them either. So we're both in the same boat. But I did write it down, pending the confirmation. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Butler,
Aye.
and Commissioner Santana.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Discuss item number 9, discuss and take action to purchase the 2 pallets of foam from Daco Fire Equipment totaling $4,160. Commissioners, last month you also approved 1 pallet. However, after 4th of July and Eddie went in back there, he was down 2 pallets instead of just 1 after he replenished the department. So he ordered 2 pallets. So I'm having to get this approved because he ordered 1 too many.
Make a motion.
I'd like approval of this.
Second.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Butler,
Aye.
and Commissioner Santana.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 10, discuss and take action on approving Socorro Fire Department to purchase swift water equipment and gear from Rescue Source. Sole source letter was provided from Rescue Source totaling $13,704. Commissioners, they did approach me on this item. This is new equipment that they're wanting to replace. They are going to take it out of their budget. And I believe for the training on the next one, they do have a grant. So I don't see why we wouldn't if they have it in their budget and they've already looked for all their money. So this is a necessity. We've done already, I believe, 2 water rescues here in this area within the last week. So it's a good thing for them to have.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Butler,
Aye.
and Commissioner Santana.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 11, discuss and take action allowing 5 members of Socorro Fire Department attend advanced swift water training at Pflugerville, Texas for the amount of $1,935, along with they got a grant through Texas Forest Service. So total, it'll be over the $2,000. It'll be $3,000 to be exact. And they'd like to get this done.
They've got a grant, so I don't see a problem. I make the motion to approve this.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Butler,
Aye.
Commissioner Santana.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 12, discuss and take action on the purchase of equipment for the new pumper. Commissioners, as you might have seen, there is a list we went out for bid on all the equipment. However, the amounts have changed a little bit. If you recall, the pumper was a little bit more expensive than it was last year. So what we're looking for is to be given the permission to,
I want to go to Valentine's and get some.
what I'm looking for is the permission to go down the list and buy the necessary equipment that we could afford based on what's left on the equipment, and go from there. I still have to dissect and make sure that these people bid on the items. So you do have MES, Daco, Darley, and Casco submitting bids for the equipment, and they're all different. So it is broken down by a spreadsheet. I don't know if you guys had time you all had time to see it.
Yes.
So the typical.
My spreadsheet doesn't open on my Dropbox.
Let me try to put it on the screen and share it with you all so you can see how it looks. Give me 1 minute, all right?
Okay.
Can you all see it?
Yes, sir.
So there's the current list of equipment that we're looking to purchase. Like I said, we were approximately, I'm looking, I don't know why my computer keeps blinking like that.
Looks good here.
I don't know,
Yeah,
it
I
keeps,
can see it.
it keeps blinking.
It looks fine.
Okay.
I'm good. I can see it.
So right now we have $117,111 with 59 cents available for the loose equipment on this rig. We had to remove 32,888 with 41 cents for the upgrades that we ended up paying for the new pumper because of the extra safety features that we ended up implementing on that truck due to all the wrecks that we had on the previous trucks. So we're only going to buy to what we budgeted for. So some of the equipment, like I said in the meeting when we approved the extra money, is that we're going to buy them whatever we can afford, and then some of the equipment will come off the old pumper to go on this one. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Perfect sense.
Commissioner
How
Butler?
much, so how much are you looking for us to approve?
Well, right now, we just want you to approve for us to review every line item. They're highlighted already on this spreadsheet. However, we want to make sure that this is what we ask from the companies to bid on. So the total money that we have, and I'm going to tell you again, it is only $117,111 with 59 cents. That's all we can spend on this equipment. So whatever we look at and we see that it's necessary, that's the only thing we will be purchasing as long as we're in that budget.
So the motion would be to approve the purchase of new pumper equipment not to exceed the budgeted amount of $117,111.59.
That is correct.
Okay. I make a motion.
Second.
A second by Santana. Mr. Diaz, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Butler?
Aye.
And Mr. Santana?
Aye.
I just had Mr. Barnes said that he was attending the meeting, but I don't see that he's logged in yet. Motion carries for item number 12. Item number 13, discuss and take action on consolidating the budgets into just one overall budget and removing all accounts from the volunteer departments. There he is. Commissioners, after looking at the way we do the budget, I consulted with Wally Hartgrove as what his thoughts were, and I think Wally's still here because I see it, he's still logged in. And he said it made perfect sense for us to consolidate. I also consulted with the auditors to see how the last audit went and what would be beneficial for us to consolidate all the budgets into one big budget instead of having 7 different budgets. So they also said it was perfect sense, plus we would be saving some money on the audit because it would only be to one. They were going to go down the list of the issues that they found were bad for us when they do an audit. One is that we can't tie in all our assets that we purchased because they're going into different departments. So consolidating, we would still be providing the departments everything that they've requested. However, it will now be under one. Now, I only had one chief so far call me and ask me, what about when they need to buy like the food for the guys? The problem is not going to be the credit cards because we can still issue them district credit cards instead of having the departments have their individual accounts. So we can still do that and we can still set the amount. The only thing that'll be better is we will have an oversight of all district funds into one account, which in turn will also allow Mariana to only have to manage one big account versus 7 accounts. And that way we can go into this online based on what we're looking at right now to switch everybody into the virtual way to saving the data that we're trying to collect. It makes it difficult to go into QuickBooks with multiple accounts versus if we just have one. Now, I did invite Wally here to speak on this item to see if he had any input and any thoughts on it. So hand it over to you, Wally, if you have anything.
No, Roger and I spoke, and I don't know of anything that prevents you from doing it. It just makes things more efficient. You can consolidate more efforts, relative ease in processing bills as opposed to having to access a number of different accounts. It makes good sense from our standpoint. The only thing I would ask of Mariana is, does she have a general ledger structure set up in the system that allows her to be able to track cost by each and every one of the stations, as I suspect you would want at least to get a report on that on a regular basis.
And that's one of the things
Sorry,
that
Mike, Park.
I heard you said it, be careful with your coworkers. But one of the things that I did talk to the auditors is the items that they would have liked for us to look at as far as the line items, because they don't, all 7 departments don't kind of mesh with each other. So they're going to come in and fix all this before if the board approves, to make sure that everything meshes and how it's going to be beneficial for us to make it work. And that's already in the works. They're going to try to make it to where it's going to be seamless. Commissioner.
Chief, my preference, if you're gonna have the auditors to come in and help make sure that we have the structure in place to make this kind of change, which will be a really drastic change from how we've done budgets. Well, for forever, right? We've never consolidated the budget. So this is going to be a pretty significant transition, I think, and I would feel more comfortable knowing that there's a plan in place and that the structure is in place before we agree to move forward with the consolidation. For example, aside from the general ledger and on the accounting side, if we have the infrastructure and the capacity to do that, what process is going to be in place for the chiefs and each individual station to feel confident in the budget process so that they feel like their needs will still be met while we're consolidating the budgets, right? So have you thought about what that process is going to look like? Are we going to have budget sessions with them? What is the timeline? All of those things.
As a matter of fact, so like I mentioned to you this time, and Wally's also here to attest to this, I did ask him. So one of the things that we're looking at, none of us are going to exhaust our budget this year because of the fact that with COVID-19, everything that we plan to travel, plan to do for training, is not going to happen. It's going to be very minimal. So one of the things that I did ask Wally, I said, Wally, is it an unreasonable request to submit the same budget with some tweaking changes as far as we bought some special projects for some departments. We're going to change it to whatever the departments that didn't get anything last year, we're going to get some. I think that's a reasonable request. And Wally, correct me if I'm wrong, you did agree that says that as long as our budget allowed it, we could continue with that, and it would be fine for this year. So what I'm trying to accomplish, Commissioner, and you're absolutely right, one of the things that we need to do first is account for all the money so that we can set up a plan into action as to how we're going to bring in the chiefs so they can still request their special projects and not have an issue with how they feel it should go. Like I said, one of them did call me up right away as soon as he saw, and he says, it only makes sense. The only thing that I'm asking is, am I still going to be able to get my training? I said, absolutely. So one of the things that we look at right now, as a matter of fact, it's Montana Vista. They called me the other day, Chief Glidden calls me the other day, and he goes, hey, I'm needing some books, but I'm out of money. We're never going to deny a department the right to send their guys to training for books, and even if he's out of money. So my thing to him is just send the request. The district still has money, and it's all this taxpayer dollars, so we will fund that. And this is the way I think we should be going. We will all have the same pot of training for every department, and some people will take advantage of it and some people will not. And that's the way we have to look at it. So as far as their requests will still be coming in for the budget, and we can implement them into the budget. Same process, just one big account. The only thing that's going to change is that the accounts will all be merged into one big one. Does that make sense?
Chief, that has been one of our biggest, that's been our vision right from the start, correct? I mean,
it was, but
one account and running everything from there.
It was never the intent to make it go now this fast, but like I said, Mariana is currently doing trying to do 7 different accounts into one right now, making it work. This will allow us to tie the budgets in and make it work more seamlessly. And I think the concern that the chiefs have is our bills are still going to get paid. Great. They're concerned. The one that did call me right away goes, am I still going to be able to get equipment? Absolutely. But it makes it even better because the departments that don't spend the money, other departments, if they need something, we can look at the budget and say money's still available. By all means, give them that. And we have those departments every year.
I don't think you've ever denied anybody, or us as a board ever denied any department in going for training and stuff like that. I mean, when they ask for something to go to training, like right now we've got Socorro, we've never had a problem with it. And I still don't have a problem with it.
I think this will make it a little bit better for everybody. Yes, there might be some hiccups at the beginning, but one of the things that I've been looking at, as a matter of fact, today I got 7 emails of the P&Ls for every department and to include us, so that I could start seeing how much money is left to see who needs what. And my thing is that I want to try to prevent next year, and I hate to say it like this, at the end of the year, we're like spend, 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 because we're trying to play catch up. Versus we look at one budget and I could say, commissioners, we are going to be looking good this year, and we can probably replace a couple of vehicles in the fleet and get it done, instead of trying to figure out how to spend thousands of dollars in little minor items that are not going to do anything to it.
So Chief, by doing this, do you see it as something that would be better for us, in the sense that, let's say we're still trying to replace equipment, this is going to be easier for you to look at it right as soon as the next budget comes in, correct?
I want to be able to produce a budget, and I completely agree, and I've said it many times. Ms. Butler is always right here because she wants a plan to how to replace all these vehicles, and we need to put a tentative plan. I sent her a couple of lists already of the things that my staff is bringing up to my attention, things that we've known, but things that we can't because we never find the money in our budget to do it. But this way, we will able to say, hey, look, at the end of closer to the end of the fiscal year, we can do X amount of repairs and still have money left for everybody, because not all of us are going to exhaust those accounts. Remember, the budget is a forecasted life document that we're trying to amend and move monies every year. So by allowing us to do this, the bigger departments might have more need, and the money might be there from the smaller departments that budget a little bit more. And I want to give them the opportunity to take advantage of all those monies when it's there.
I think that's fair.
I don't disagree that long run having one budget is going to be more effective and efficient for tracking expenses and being able to align the ESD's long-term goals, right? I just worry about this transparency in the process. So I think this is a good starting conversation, but I don't feel comfortable taking action until we know how this is going to play out. So I know that we've consolidated a lot of expenses already. I don't know exactly which ones those are. So maybe at the next meeting, we can get an update on which line items have been consolidated already, which ones are still at the discretion of the fire stations, the independent fire stations, and how we plan to consolidate those moving forward. And also in terms of the assets, I remember that the auditor said that a big part of the problem is that we don't have a good inventory, right? And so where are we in the process of that inventory check of all of our assets?
That inventory, Eddie, which is out of purchasing, he's been keeping track of his inventory. He sent numerous emails to the chiefs. So please, the only thing we're requesting is that if they move equipment, they notify us immediately so we can put it in the asset WASP inventory program, which I think right now he hasn't said anything to me that to the contrary. So I think it's working well. But one of the things that the auditor did mention to me is that not only that is the fact that we can't tie in the equipment that we're buying into the district, because what we do is, since we allow for the departments to get equipment, we put it in their account, and then it's difficult to bring in that asset into the district. That's the reason I'm asking for a consolidation of the budget, not only for that. I do agree with Ms. Butler that some of the other chiefs might eventually have a question, but I can reassure you that this is not a plan to cut them off. We can always issue them the same amount of credit card power that we have them right now, except it'll be one big account. And it'll be a little bit more self-stream, because right now we buy a piece of equipment, it comes here, but it's actually allocated into a department, but not the district. So when the auditors come in, this is the way he explained it to me. When the auditors come in, they see the expenditure that we did, but it's not in our books, it's in somebody else's books. So that's where they have an issue tying it in. Wally, does that make sense to you?
How about the auditor sending a couple people over to the offices?
He is. He said he could have all this fixed and ready within probably a 1 day's work, and get it all ready for when we do make this change. It's going to go seamless, and it's going to make our budget go so much easier. And realistically, he says we're probably going to save a lot of money by going into one, because right now the way it works, they have to look at 7 accounts to try to make it all mesh into one.
I've got is Mr. Hargrove still available?
Yes.
I am.
Mr. Hargrove, I got a question for you. You're listening to our discussion right now, or what we're bringing up. What do you see on what we're talking about? I mean, what's your recommendation, sir?
You know, again, I think I started with it, and I'll reply the same, and that is, you know, going to a consolidated effort is just streamlining things, makes things more efficient, allows you to act, you know, a little more swiftly, gives you total availability of funds across the district. I do hear the comment that Ms. Butler is making is, you know, this is a big change. You know, the discussion's been around for some period of time.
Yes.
And
yes.
I'm not opposed to it. I think it makes good sense, as long as, again, as long as you have the means to be able to come back in your accounting system, be able to say, hey, you know, it's all consolidated, but this year on Montana Vista, we've spent $73,000 for this. Over here on we've spent a ton of money for these purposes, just so that in aggregate, it's not just one number that you sort of lose that accountability of. And I think that's probably Commissioner Butler's biggest concern, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. So we still need a way to track individual departments' expenditures and needs, right? So this is not erasing their individual budgets. It's just putting them under one main budget.
Right, and we will save a lot of money, because right now we pay 7 different QuickBook accounts. We pay the auditor to reuse 7 different accounts for the audit. We also have to pay for us to back up all those 7. So now we're going to do to 1, and that's where a lot of the savings will come in. And again, we might be able to look at a little bit better. I've been looking at the way we do the digital saving of all our documents. Right now, we spend, you saw it one of the last meetings, Mr. Avalos has been calling me and asking me how we're going to do this, and we just had a meeting about this, because one of his biggest concerns is that we spent $14,000 for a cloud service that only one person uses. So after me going out to look at vendors and kind of try to put it together, we found a vendor that can, for that amount, all 35 of us at the district would have the benefit of cloud services, so that you don't have this problem. But that'd be 35 of us instead of 1. And it is totally different. That's why we're trying to consolidate into 1. And I understand, Ms. Butler, and I can tell you right now that one of my plans, because of that one chief that did call me and stress his concerns about just that, he says it totally makes sense that you will handle all the bills, electrical, gas, everything. I don't care any of that. All I want to know is that you're going to provide me the funding for training and equipment. We've never said no. And that's what we're going to do. And if it makes it any easier, I think we can make, and this is something that I'll have a meeting with Wally and maybe the auditors to see if it makes sense to maybe have a major one account and maybe create a big spreadsheet to say, just so we can track of who's spending what, so that we don't get out of control and say, hey, Socorro spent out of the $200,000 budget, $100,000, and the rest were left hanging. So what we want to do is, if somebody makes a reasonable request, bring it up to the board and say, the board, hey, we do have the money and it's available. We can give somebody more money. It's not the problem. Because if I look at the budgets right now, I can guarantee you most of the departments that have not spent their money, and we know one of them is always going to be San Luis Estadio, does not spend their money, but there's other departments that are needing funding. And it's always like that. Like I said, I love the fact that I told Chief Glidden, Chief, just put in your request. If we have the money, we're going to buy you the equipment. We shouldn't leave them hanging, wanting more equipment because they're out of money. That's my thoughts. That's why I want to consolidate into one. And West Valley, Socorro, if they need a little bit more and it's there, by all means, take it. It's not a problem. And maybe some of the equipment. This is also going to give me the ability to look at putting the plan that Ms. Butler has been asking, because I'm telling you, it's on my mind. I say it all the time. It's to say, now I can look at is what we're actually spending, so that I can say, okay, right now we're going to spend X amount of dollars in all this equipment, and we won't worry about that equipment for 10 years. So put a plan in action, but we don't know how much we actually have, because every year we're left with nothing.
Would it be possible to get a list from the auditors on what they are going to assist with and what factors they want us to look at before we make this transition?
We can.
Okay. I'd also like to revisit the discussion about recycling last year's budget and what the budget process is going to look like for this year.
One of the, and I'm going to say it right now, I haven't got to that point yet, but Wally, one of the meetings that I had with the county judge on the Friday meetings that we have, I did bring up the fact that I'd like to have a meeting with the county judge and the county manager. I'm going to try to request this COVID for us is going to be a very big learning experience as an ESD. Because we've always been recommended that we have 100% in budget. So we've always been recommended by the county to have no more than 36%. Correct me if I'm wrong, Will. So with that said, if the district is at 36%, and you know that we might be hurting a little bit here and there, how long can we continue to do this before the district is out of money? Can the county actually recover in the next 2 to 3 years? And will we have reserves to make it happen? At 36%, I don't know. Depends on how we're looking at it. Wally and I had a conversation where we thought that for next year, maybe we'd be $200,000 shy, right, Wally? In the budget. This year so far, we're looking at $43,000 shy in the budget. So it could go either way, and we might have to balance that budget from reserves, and we only have 36% reserves. So one of the things that I'd like to ask the county commissioners to reconsider allowing us to have a little bit more, because we're not a taxing entity. They can actually raise taxes to make up the funds, and not that we were trying to, but it gives us the flexibility to try to make it a little bit longer.
So you're saying you want to talk to the county judge and commissioners about going over the 36%?
Correct. I believe we should have at least 50, if not 60% of our budget, because if we get into any situation like we are now, and we don't collect the amount of revenues for sales tax that we were supposed to, and we start dipping into that, 36% will be out.
So you alluded to this a few times, Chief, but what exactly is the impact of COVID on our budgets?
So, like I said earlier, during the talks with Wally, we're looking maybe at 200,000. We are unsure right now because of sales tax. Everybody right now, only of sales tax. The regular taxes is going to be the regular taxes, but sales tax is what is kind of it's kind of a little bit different. As of right now, I got an email from Mariana that says we're $43,000 maybe shy for this fiscal year. So 43,000 in the grand scheme of things is not a lot. We can still manage it based on what we're looking at with the spendings with the trend. Wally, did you raise your hand? I just noticed the icon.
I did. You know, so it's a very, you know, even if you read the state comptroller's release yesterday from Glenn Hager's office, it is a situation that is probably the most unpredictable that any of us in our lifetimes have ever faced. There's a lot of uncertainty and unknowns. It's a very fluid situation. You know, in the sales, you have two revenue sources: property taxes and sales taxes. That really is your bread and butter of your budget. Taxes, we believe, will be stable for fiscal year 21. However, we do suspect that you're going to see a different collection rate very likely come into play for fiscal year 22. The city tax assessor has been certifying 100% collection rate for decades. I think that's going to come in closer to 95% as people have the inability to make their mortgage payments. We do believe we're going to see delinquencies on taxes going up. So if you're looking at your property tax number, start thinking in the minds that not for 21, but for 22, we think we're probably going to have the exposure of about a 5% potential increase in delinquent and accounts going delinquent. And that's all to be determined. And again, it's still very uncertain. It's very fluid because how fast we get over this pandemic, whether or not we go to another shelter in place, whether or not we have a second round in the fall and winter, are all factors that could, guys could throw this all over the place. And I'm sorry, I'm looking at one monitor because you guys are on my monitor and I realized my camera's over here, so I'm not looking away from you. So I'll talk to a different monitor. It's my home office. But on the sales tax perspective, it too, with the, you're probably a little more unique than we are with the spend coming across the border. But with the bridges being shut down, it certainly is having a significant impact on the city and the county. We are down in our first 3 months from sales taxes $1 million. And I don't collect near as much as the city. The city's probably closer to $6 million down in sales tax. So sales taxes is a pretty significant factor. That again, if things wind down and we take a giant step backwards and bars and restaurants have to shut back down or scale back, they're going to have a larger impact on all of our revenue stream, in particular, like sales tax and the delinquency rate on property taxes. So as we're hearing anything, I'll be sure to keep the chief and Mariana in the loop as to what we're hearing at the state level and just comparatively what the impacts, as I'm talking to my peers over at the city of El Paso, as they're looking at the delinquency rates and watching current collections. I'll certainly keep you all abreast of the same. But unemployment, we were at a record low in February of 3.8%. We peaked out the month before last at 14.9% unemployment. It dropped off a little bit with some reopening. So we're at 14.5% unemployment right now as well. So we've gone up fivefold in unemployment. And that's also playing into the numbers. If the federal government does not do another stimulus package and unemployment does come to a grinding stop, you're going to see numbers probably taper off. One of the reasons sales taxes probably aren't near as low as we thought they would be is a lot of families got $1,200 stimulus checks and greater stimulus checks. Unemployment spiked up, and so, but the unemployment benefits are due to expire if they're not extended in the next 10 days. So these are all factors that you need to keep your pencil sharpened on and keep your ears real close to the ground as we're moving into the 21 budget and thereafter.
Right.
But I just wanted to know the things that we're watching right now.
That's super helpful.
I've
Thank
had
you.
sorry.
Go ahead,
I've had discussions also with the chief of Horizon. He's also said that his sales tax are higher than they've ever been because people are still spending, which is great. But again, if there is not another stimulus package, will this continue the same trend? And those are things we have to watch by. That's why I'm trying to consolidate so that we can have a better understanding of how we're going to do this. Because if we have to cut in some areas here and there as we go, then it makes it easier than to try to say 7 departments, we're going to lose a piece of everything. And that's why it kind of makes sense to try to consolidate into one, to try to make this work for all of us. This is detrimental for all of us here at the
In
district.
terms of, I have a better understanding now of how COVID is impacting the revenues. How is it impacting the expenses beyond, travel and perhaps some trainings being impacted? Are you seeing trends in the types of calls that we're having that will impact the types of equipment and supplies that are needed over the next year? I mean,
So
I'm assuming that there are going to be long-term impacts on those things.
there is. So right now, the impact that we're seeing on the cause is that we've actually made a lot of changes. Treviso and myself, and sent the directive out to the chiefs. The way we respond is totally different from what we were doing back in February. We're trying to conserve equipment that we don't need to let go right now this minute until it gets to the point where we have to. So even for our calls, you're going to see our call volume going down, and it's not because we're not wanting to respond. It's because we changed the way. So right now, if a fire truck rolls out, they don't even get off the truck until the ambulance tells them, we need you. Because picture it, every time the firemen get off the truck, they're going to fully suit up to go into the unknown. And that's what we prevented. Now, if they say it's a COVID patient, just per se, the ambulance gets there, they suit up. That's 2 people from the ambulance that are going in. But if they don't need the firemen, they wave them by and we return without getting off the truck. So it's a lot different. We've saved a lot of equipment. That's why I'm happy to say we are very well stocked up right now in case our first responders do need equipment. And we have a nice supply of equipment. But if this continues, and we've even had talks that even for life ambulance, there is only so many life ambulance drivers. If they start getting sick, guess what? We're going to have to figure out how to make that work, because it's a team effort. And this is not something that we can say that's life's responsibility, because we are part of the emergency response. So we're trying to make sure that we have the funds available. We're trying to make sure we're going to make it work. And I agree with you, Commissioner, on a lot of things that we need to have a little bit better place. That's why for this year, I'm kind of looking to consolidate all of it to see how we're going to do, because we can, if this doesn't shape up, like Wally said, we could struggle.
So let me see if I'm, one of the things that we're doing as well, recommendation we're making to the court doesn't start their budget hearings for another 3 weeks, but one of the recommendations that we're doing is, as we have funded and budgeted for large strategic investments, whether that is for capital improvements, vehicles, equipment, what we're going to do is, more than likely, again, the court has not voted on this, but this will be the recommendation coming out of budget and admin, is that the court defer those major capital expenditures until such time we see how is the first quarter results coming in for FY21. So that way we don't expend it, and then we find out we're in much worse shape than we anticipated, and we can take some remediatory action and say, you know what, we budgeted those, but we're going to defer and suspend those projects because we need to trim and tighten our budget up a little bit more. So strategically, it might be wise for the district, as you do budget these, to some of the things that are large single source expenditures, again, capital improvements and things of that nature, is if you do budget them, you might want to take the action to say, look, let's not pull the trigger on bidding those out and spending those dollars until we see how the pandemic plays out and what the impact is on our revenue stream. That's the approach we're going to take.
And that's actually a very good analogy there, Wally, because that's what we're looking for this year. Every year we had a plan to replace a pumper. This is the first year that right now I can say we can do away with that pumper this year, because the next department that was up for a pumper is Sanelli. Their truck is the newest truck they have is a 2013. So we start the process and when they become 10 years old to have another one. I can make that truck go another 3 years without having to budget for this truck. However, we do need to look at our facilities the way we've been doing it. And we do have a list. So that's why consolidating would be one to say, now we're going to invest this year a little bit at a time to make sure that we have enough funds to make it work for this year, because it's the unknown that has me kind of scared.
Yeah, that's when the judge asked me the question at the presentation I made a week ago. He said, "What keeps you up at night?" And I said, "Right now, the uncertainty of the current pandemic and its impact on our financial condition."
Okay. Would it be possible, Chief, to get, because we've talked about this before, but I don't think we've gotten one, is to get a presentation on year-to-date expenses for our next meeting. That way we can have a better idea of what the budget looks like and what it's going to look like over the next couple of months, and then maybe have a plan for how we're going to consolidate the accounts.
We can look at what we spent. Like I said, we're going to have to put a spreadsheet together from each individual department, and that's kind of tricky right now because everybody's on different accounts. And like I said, I literally just got today the P&Ls from every department. So those are the things that I'm having to look at. And this year we will have a surplus of money left because of the lack of travel, the lack of training, the lack of everything that we didn't do this. So we can get a little bit more of an understanding of how we're doing it. And definitely we can possibly even set up a one meeting to kind of go over those numbers and get a little bit of a more understanding of how we're going to do it. Because right now what I'm looking at is the unknown. I've been thinking of how we're going to do this. And if we have to cut, what are we going to cut? So.
Right. I'd feel much more comfortable if we had those budgets in front of us when we talk about the decision to consolidate.
Okay. So on item number 13, again, commissioners, it's discuss and take action on the consolidating of the budget into just one overall budget and removing all accounts from the volunteer departments. Right now, there is no motion, there is no anything. So what would you all like to do?
Request a special meeting to go over year-to-date budgets and the process for consolidating, if that's okay with everybody.
I think that would be wise, and I support that.
Would you like to make it one special meeting, one item, just so we can focus on this, how we're going to do this? Because like I said, this is the unknown. We have to move on, and that's what I told Wally. I'd like to get this so we can present one budget instead of the way we normally do it, breakdown of everybody in the request to the county. So that way it goes a little bit flawlessly. Go ahead.
Chief, I agree that this special meeting should just have this one item. However, I think we should be open to having a series of meetings to discuss the budgets over the next month or so. I want to make sure we have a transparent process that's well communicated, and that we're not, making assumptions and rushing to consolidate without taking the time to do that. And we might not need the meetings, but I'd like to see if everybody's open to maybe having a few budget sessions, just like any other taxing entity might have.
I do have a question as far as on the budgets. Chief, if we were to go to this at this point, and let's say like in a month or two, or for next year, okay? Let's say for 2021. At the end of this year, are we still going to be doing individual fire departments, or are you going to present the whole budget for everyone, for all the fire departments?
So this is not consolidating the accounts now. I don't want to begin this till October 1st.
Okay.
So from here to October 1st is when everything is going to be consolidated, moved everything from the exterior accounts back into the district, making sure everything kind of jives into the numbers, making sure that we show all the numbers, and then have everything ready to go as to how. The only thing that I was trying to accomplish with this is to say, and I agree with Ms. Butler, to kind of give the chiefs the opportunity to request what they're requesting, so we can look at it a district now a whole and say, we're gonna put it all into one and say, we can afford this, or agreeing with what Wally says also is, let's hold off on the big projects. Let's hold off on this one until X amount of time, just so we can see. My biggest concern right now is that I do kind of look at how the tax is coming, but we are not sure. Everything's up in the air. We're trying to make assumptions, but we don't know. So that's why my train of thought is, if we consolidate the one, we can, as a district, collectively say, we got hit and we didn't collect, so your budget that was approved for all of us is now going to be slashed. And that's for all of us, not just one, it's all of us. So it makes it easier. That's why I was trying to not rush into it, but kind of put it into for October 1st. From here to the end of the fiscal year, everything's still the same. But for now, I am bringing somebody to start looking at the changes to what they're requesting that we change to make it work, and what they said in the audit that should have been better. So to make sure that we're all running in a little bit smoother situation.
When are they going?
The last conversation, I said they were going to try to schedule it just so that they can come and see what based on the audit, what they requested be changed, and we have not changed it, and make sure we change it, because they did agree that this would make the budget, the audit, be a little bit flawless if we fixed it now versus when we're getting ready to do the audit.
So we'll just, as far as this item goes, we're gonna have a special meeting then?
It's up to you. I need a motion or to table, or a motion to continue. I need something.
But
Could we make a motion to have a special meeting to discuss? I
Well,
can list.
that'll be done at the end of the meeting when we say the next
Okay.
meeting. But for this item, either you all take no action, or you take action. You make a motion to approve item number 13, or you say no action. None of you vote anything on it. So my question is, do I have a motion to approve item number 13? If no motion is done, the item is tabled.
I'm not ready to make a motion. So I would move to table.
Commissioners, Ms. Butler is requesting to table the item. Do I have a second?
Chief, I would like to get something done by October, but she did bring up a good point on trying to see where we are on this year to date on the budgets and what we have left over, so that we can start looking at it for next year. As Wally said, the uncertainty is very scary. It's very scary, and it's dark. We don't know what's going to happen. So instead of us making an unjustly vote and decision and saying, okay, let's do it, I'm going to support Ms. Butler on this one.
Second to table?
Second to table, Diaz.
Commissioners, the motion will be to table this item.
Wally, did you have your hand raised again?
Oh,
Just yeah, I've spoken more this meeting than I've spoken all year, huh? No, just one reminder, you are scheduled to present your budget to commissioners August 13th. So just as you're planning out your future meetings, 3 weeks will come upon you pretty quickly, okay?
Wow. So maybe for next week we can.
That's what I was going to say. It has to be next week.
We have to move on it quick. Okay.
Thank you.
What day next week are we looking at to meet?
Commissioner, we'll look at that as it's on the item number 22.
Okay.
Discuss and approve the next meeting. So that's when we will say. So if there's no motion, item dies. I mean, no action. Are we in agreement with that?
Sure.
Yes.
Item number 13, not approved. Item number 14, discuss and take action allowing Horizon Police Department to install our radio frequencies and radio issues to lead medical transport for communications with the fire units when needed. Commissioners, I was approached by Chief McConnell for them to use the frequencies from ESD number 2 to be placed on their new elite medical transport for communications with the ESD fire units, and only when needed. So I think this is something we should support. This is not something they're going to be using for dispatch. This is just something for when right now during COVID and everything else, we can at least talk and say, we don't need you to continue back to your stations. And I think this is something we should support.
Is this to take action to allow legal counsel to draft the MOU?
They
Or
will,
is it to
no, it's
approve?
for us to allow him to use the frequencies, and legal counsel will draft the MOU and the agreement that it will be only when, to be used when needed. In other words, they will not be dispatching the ambulance out of these frequencies. That's what we're agreeing on. They can talk to us, give us guidance, give us whatever it needs in an emergency, but it will not be used for them to be dispatched.
Chief, I feel like we should have the MOU to look at before we make a motion to approve the services or
Yeah,
for the installation.
well, we can't do an MOU and pay the attorney until after you all approve yes or no, because if you say no, then I don't pay him money.
Well, then I would recommend that we move to approve legal counsel drafting the MOU and then bring the MOU back to us to approve or not.
Do I have a second for that, commissioners?
If he draws it up at that point in time, you present it, that's what's gonna go to Horizon, correct?
Correct.
And this was just for them not to use those frequencies because initially they wanted to use them for their own ambulance service, which was elite, right?
Correct.
And
This is for them to be able to use them, but we're gonna get an MOU to say, this is what we're agreeing to, just like we did with the tribal.
With the tribal.
So there's a motion right now is to allow legal to draft out the MOU and then be presented again to you all afterwards.
But we're still gonna be paying ahead, right? I mean, it still has to be done.
Yes, sir.
I thought we had done this before, Chief,
We did it for our tribal.
just for tribal. So it'll be the same thing?
It'll be pretty much the same thing.
Is there a rush on this?
No, I mean, right now they have radios on loan from us, but they're all radios. So the 911 district purchased radios for Socorro and Horizon Police to be issued out to those ambulance services. So now they want to put those there. So the only reason we are getting an MOU is because, like I told them, the same thing with tribal. If they do something in our frequencies that is not to the agreement of VSD number 2, we can pull our frequencies off those radios.
Right. Well, I don't see why we can't do that now if we did it for tribal. It's going to be the same thing.
My comment is not really to whether I agree with this or not. It's more about the process that I'd like to see in place. So, ideally, when we're agreeing to something, I'd like to see the MOU in writing before we agree to it.
Sorry, I'm taking a drink out of my soft drinks or my water.
Yeah. We're not looking too much into that. If it's something, it's something we already did.
I do understand what Ms. Butler is asking for. She'd like to see the agreement already written up, but on something like this, I didn't want to spend it and then for y'all to say, well, no, because then we have to pay again. So
Or
if you're
let's
in agreement,
change it.
if you're in agreement now that this is what we're agreeing to, that we will allow Horizon to use the frequencies for in case they need it with the volunteer departments only, then this is what the MOU will say. But if we want to change it, then we will have to send it back and say, we want them to be dispatched or whatever the case may have been. This is what I think we're agreeing on right now.
Right. The MOU is dependent on whatever we vote on, right?
Correct.
I guess what Ms. Butler's trying to say, Chief, is she'd like to see something in
The MOU already.
Well, or even not an MOU, maybe not drawn up by the lawyer, but maybe something that you could put together first, so we can look at it and kind of say, okay, this is what we're going to be presenting to Horizon. It still has to go to our legal counsel, but this is what's going to happen. And then at that point in time, you can send it at that point in time. We can approve it, and I guess we could vote on it at that point in time. That'll be the final MOU for what we want done, for what you want done. Ms. Butler, is that more or less what you're saying?
Yeah, I really don't like making votes just on like verbal exchanges and our conversations here. You know, you all are in this business and I'm an outsider, but I want to make sure that we have the documentation backup for when we make these kinds of motions and decisions.
Here's the deal. MOUs are done, and I understand from Chief's point of view as well. I mean, MOUs are done on a daily basis, especially, on their side. They understand that more than we do. I'm an outsider just like you, but I mean, as far as the MOUs, I was able to work on one MOU, which was the one with the Tiguas, and I think that's what brought me up to snuff on it.
And it was done the exact same way, actually.
Yes.
The board agreed, and then the document was sent out.
I mean, unless you want to get involved in this one, I mean, that it's a good learning experience, and at the same time, it's something that you can reflect upon anytime it needs to be done, and it's perfectly safe. I mean, I don't know. I understand your side, and I understand the other side. I mean, I'm trying to I'm in the middle. Chief, did McConnell want a response on this? Like, how soon?
I'm pretty sure if we're having a meeting next month, and unless we're only going to make a one-item meeting, then we can have it on there for the next meeting. If you're all approving for legal just to draft that MOU and have it sent out to you all ASAP, should probably be in your boxes by no later than Thursday or Friday.
Chief, is there any way you could give us something like more or less what the MOU would read off of what we have right now with the Tiguas and stuff like that? Maybe to kind of like, okay, this is
it's pretty much just going to say, like I said earlier, and this is being recorded, so in case anything that everybody says that that's not what we agreed to, is that the Horizon Police Department will have access to use our frequencies for their use, and I'm going to say their use because they're going to let their vendor use it for communications within the fire departments for emergency use only. And not, I want to make sure that we detail it again, that they're not to use it for dispatch or anything else for that, because then it's going to hinder our ability to go back to where too many people were in the frequencies and not, bonking, taking us out. That's why I want to make sure we have an MOU. And that's the only thing. Other than that, I think it's a good idea that they use it. They currently have radios on loan from us here because we want to be able to communicate. except these, in the way that that's working right now is I loan them the radios, but if we disagree with something, I take our radios back. Now, the radios that are going to be presented by Verizon, those aren't our radios, so I cannot take them back. That's the only difference. The only thing that I would say is I'm going to send them a letter saying, hey, based on our MOU, this is what we agreed to, and that's not what's being followed. So there's a motion to have legal counsel draft the MOU and place it on the next agenda. Do I have a second? Okay. No second. Item number 14 dies.
Somebody else can make a motion.
I wanted just to go through with it. It's not a big deal. It really isn't. Like Chief said, it's being recorded already. This is exactly what we want. It can't be changed. If that's the case, I want to make the motion to go ahead, make this agreement, have our attorney write up the MOU, exactly what we're asking for. I don't see what the big deal is.
I have a motion by Commissioner Santana to approve item number 14. Do I have a second?
You know what, I'm gonna go ahead and second it, only because we've already done this with the Tiguas and other MOUs as far as like even with the city of El Paso. And we've always come back to the point to where we've agreed on it, the MOU comes back to us, we make the final approval, and at that point in time, it's done. So,
Commissioners, just so you know, whenever we present an MOU to you all that's coming from a different entity, the MOU is presented to us for what they're looking for. And typically, if it's a big on this, the request came in for us to allow to use our frequency, and I do agree with that. However, I think it should be in an MOU so that we don't have a discrepancy to say later, we're doing something outside of the scope of what we all agreed to. That's why it's going to be a quick, simple MOU, and it's coming from us to them. Just like we did to Tribal. They wanted to use our frequency. We said yes, but there was an MOU as to this is how you're going to use it. Now they have their own dispatch frequencies separate from us. Commissioner Diaz, how do you vote on item number 14?
aye.
Commissioner Butler?
Nay.
Commissioner Santana?
Aye.
And Commissioner Barnes?
I think he dropped off.
Motion carries. I thought I just saw him. No, he's here. I see the M for Mr. Mike.
That
Barnes?
says guest to me.
Oh, that's right. That's a different one. Okay, I guess he did drop off. The motion carries. Item number 15, discuss an update on the fleet replacement plan schedule. Commissioners, let me look at my email here. Talking about all this expenditures, and I think one of this item, I wanted you all to see it. Give me 1 minute. Mario has been dissecting the fleet to see what we can and cannot salvage. If we're following our vehicle replacement policy, we are actually 22 vehicles. I think he removed 2 of them because one of them we can still use here at the district office and give it a little bit more life. But if we're gonna follow that, we were, I think he said 20 or 19 vehicles. He sent me an attachment. Give me 1 minute.
Commissioner Barnes?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, I've been trying to talk on here. It may reload the program, so my IT guy just fixed it. Sorry about that. I could hear you guys, just gonna technology, my best friend.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No.
I'm gonna do a push-up later. Is it over?
No.
Okay.
We're in item 15.
Yep,
Yes.
right here.
And Chief Esparza is trying to pull something up on his computer.
Give me 1 minute, Commissioners. I'm trying to make it work to where it comes out on your screen. Give me 1 minute.
Yeah, I found out I had Microsoft Teams for the government, and they won't let me do county accounts on it. So, money thing, I guess. Probably a moral violation, but I think I'm good now. This thing seems to work pretty good.
All right. Sorry about that. Technology. There it is. So if we look at the vehicles, Commissioners, what he's doing right now is he's going to be separating the small fleet, which is the everyday small vehicles, to also replace the brush trucks. And one of the reasons why he's asking me to look into this is because if we look at it, we have brush trucks also that are mixed into this list, and he's already taken them out here. But he's going to create a different list because those are the trucks that are, we have some that are already 16 years old, and they are great looking trucks. They are working fine. Nonetheless, they are 16 years old. If we continue on this path, eventually we will need a bunch of trucks to be replaced all at once. So we don't have a per se as how we're going to do this vehicle replace, because of course, the last time I looked into the 23 vehicles that are currently sitting on this list is going to be over $2 million.
Are you meaning to show us your screen, Roger?
I thought I was. There it is, right?
There it is.
So all these 22 vehicles, if you look at the mileage, we have vehicles that are currently 2008s with 55,000 miles, 2007s, 2001s with 75,000 miles. Again, we have to start looking at every single piece of equipment. And what Mario is doing, he's compiling a list of vehicles that are not even getting a couple of thousand miles in a year, which is why we're looking at this vehicle list to see if, do we really need to replace 23 vehicles, or are we just giving the departments what they're asking for without actually using the vehicles? And this is one of the hard parts that I've always said, because we want to give the departments what they're requesting, but if it's not being used, why have it? Does it make sense?
Yes.
So if we look at, let's say, a 2001 Excursion at 75,000 miles, that's already, 19 years old, right?
So can you walk us through this color coding, what it means? What's in the red, the
It's the
yellow, the blue?
vehicles that Mario thinks that should be more ready to be replaced. Look at the years. That's how he's got it, and based on the mileage also. But if you
So
look
are
at
they,
Utility 502, which is in the yellow, it's a newer vehicle, but it's got way mileage. But he says it's still in good shape. The other ones that he wants to promote is to get rid of the 2005 because it's got a lot of issues with it. Low mileage, but issues with it.
So are they prioritized?
That's why right now I had him move some of these, because I believe he had in here a couple of the brush trucks, which are not supposed to be considered part of these. So if we look at by prioritization, there is low mileage vehicles with a lot of age that need to be replaced with a lot of issues. So we're spending a lot of money on these vehicles, and that's why one of the things that I wanted you all to look at, and I'm going to send you the graphs that he's currently working on, is which departments have vehicles that have not put in the mileage. Like I said, on this, we're looking at right now Rescue 309, which is sitting here at the district office needing more repairs. It's a 2001 with 75,000 miles. Every time that truck comes here, we spend about $500 in repairs, and it averages 3,947 miles a year. It doesn't make sense for us to have it. And if we look at it now, it's probably averaging less than that a year. So these are the things that I want you all to look as a board, is that not we're trying to deny the departments. Does it make sense for us to go buy 22 vehicles that are not going to be used?
Hey, Chief, are we gonna, well, can the district also apply for those grants, like from the U.S. Forestry Service?
For brush trucks?
Yes.
No.
Only the fire departments, I believe, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So we're gonna lose that privilege?
No, they'll still get to apply for the. Are you listening to your radio or?
No, not me.
Oh, all right. I was making sure that I wasn't speaking while you're trying to listen to your call. We'll still apply for the grant under the volunteer departments. The money will still be allocated by the district the way it always was. It's nothing changes.
Okay.
But a lot of, like I said, we are compiling a different list of brush trucks because right now we have a plan to replace all big pumpers, but that's it. We've said it. The district created a policy that it was going to be 10 years or 100,000 miles for the small vehicles to be replaced, or 10 years, 150,000 miles for all diesel vehicles to be replaced. We don't have the kind of funding to go replace all of them at once. But one of the ones that we have to look at is all this list right here is to say, do we really need all those vehicles?
Chief, I've got a question on that Rescue 309, that 2001 Ford Excursion. Which department, or where's that one from? Sanelli or Fabens?
309, that is Fabens.
That's Fabens. Okay. How much más o menos does that bring into us when it goes to auction?
That one right now, the way it sits, it might bring us $6,000.
Okay. Okay. So that would be that'd be 6,000 less that we spend on a new vehicle.
Correct.
So what you're saying, Chief, is you have yet to do an analysis of whether these vehicles actually need to be replaced in comparison, or when you're looking at what the total needs of the district are.
No, Commissioner, the analysis has been done. It's now Mario wants to give a better idea of which vehicles are actually getting used, because one of the things he brings up to me is we're doing oil changes on vehicles that really only had 1,000 miles from the last oil change. And I tell him also, some of these vehicles are necessary evils to have, and we can't compare the fire trucks to the small vehicles. But he's talking to me now is that we are spending so much money. So what he wants to do is say to me is, Chief, Rescue 309 is a 2001 Ford, and here's why we want to get rid of it, and here's why we don't need it. That's what we are going to give you all. Based on our policy, these vehicles right here on this list are all ready to be replaced. There's no doubt about it. We have a policy that says that. But do we really need and want to replace all 23, or do you want me just to tell you, Commissioners, based on our policy, 23 vehicles need to be replaced? I think we should get it more into depth, to what we're looking at.
I don't think anybody's asking for a blanket approval or denial. I think what I'm trying to get a better understanding of is whether that analysis of what the minimum fleet number looks like. So how many vehicles do we need in order to meet our requirements as a district, and how does that compare to this list of vehicles that are needing to be, um, what do you call it? Like retired, right?
Right.
So has that analysis been done of how many vehicles is our minimum requirement?
If you recall, Commissioner, we tried to buy a software that was going to do all that in a snap of a finger. And right now we're compiling all that on an Excel sheet via the AA that Mario has assigned to him right now. So we are going over all the receipts of what we are expended, all the expenditures per vehicle, so we can give a better determination as to what we are spending yearly on these vehicles. We're going to give you a breakdown per vehicle for you all to review and what the mileage is per vehicle that we're spending every year. That way we can, as a district, say, do we really need this vehicle? Yes or no? And I'm going to leave that up to you all, because if I tell you the list and I can mark it for you all to say, look, this vehicle only received X amount of mileage and this is how much it cost us. But then you might all say, I'm not being fair to the departments. That's why I'd rather you all look at it and give you a breakdown of how much it cost us to operate that vehicle
But
yearly.
Chief, how are we supposed to know how many vehicles each department needs in order to operate?
You're not, Commissioner. What you're looking at is the replacement of the fleet. If you're looking at the top vehicle, let's look at mine right now. It's a 2015 Chevy Tahoe. If you saw that vehicle right now had 10,000 miles on it, would you say, Chief, you don't need one? But it actually has 126,000 miles on it, and it meets the criteria and it's being used, then that's a vehicle we should say yes. But if we, in the same token, if we look at Rescue 514 with 44,000 is a 2004. Do we really need to replace that vehicle, or are we just spending our money there to keep a vehicle that's not being used to benefit the community? That's why we need.
So you're saying our decision should be based on the mileage in the year?
Year, mileage, and are we actually using that vehicle?
Not whether the departments need it, even if it's minimally used.
No, not on these small vehicles. I'm talking the big vehicles are different. The small vehicles, if we're spending money to maintain them and they're not being used, why have them? Does that make sense, or does not make sense to you? I know Mr. Barnes goes through this every year, Mr. Barnes.
You're on mute, Barnes.
No, you're correct. Some of the vehicles are necessary evil. I have vehicles that have 5,000 miles on it. I can't get rid of them because I need them. Other vehicles, they have more hours than miles. And I look at, okay, this vehicle spends half its time idling. You know, do I get rid of it? And I think that if that chart had another column, what station had those vehicles, I know it shouldn't come into play. So it gives a better top or common operating picture. When we do the analysis, I know some is it worth keeping them? I got it. These are smaller vehicles they use to shuttle around in versus respond, right?
No, this is the first out units that are there to be making calls. All the small fleet, all the little pickups, all the Suburbans, the Tahoes, whatever you see out in Montana Vista, that's in this fleet. Out of Montana Vista, you see there's 4 of them.
Now, what's the chief's take on this? Have you spoken with the chiefs about it and what they're?
Oh yeah, I've made it a point. I said, Chiefs, how can I approach the board to give you a new vehicle when you have a vehicle that only has 44,000 and it's already 16 years old? If you break down the mileage or whatever, even if you want to do it yearly, it doesn't add up. And then our cost to maintain that 14-year-old vehicle is a lot more than what we're using in mileage.
But so when you talk about vehicles that are a necessary evil, which both of you have mentioned, what are the factors that play into that?
I'm going to say a brush truck, a tanker. There's tankers that only have 500 miles in 1 year.
Yeah,
They're there for a reason. They're there to provide a water source if needed. I cannot get rid of those.
Like the 3,500 trailer haulers, you can't haul it with a 1,500 truck, you know.
So am I correct in assuming that those aren't on this replacement list?
Those are separate. That's why we're working on a couple lists, but we're going to give you a breakdown of every cost per year for each one of these vehicles to make it easier on us. That's what we want to look at. I'm going to give you an example right now. We kept West Valley's 1997 Ford F450 or Super Duty, and that vehicle was replaced by a brand new 2016 Ford F550. Replaced, necessary evil, great truck. However, we just dumped several $1,000s on it, and if we go to sell it, that truck is not worth that money. Those are the things that we're going to produce to you all to say, this is why we want to get rid of these, because that vehicle is not worth what we're going to dump into it at this point. I can guarantee you that some of these vehicles, looking at the years and the mileage, we're not going to make what we keep dumping into them yearly.
I think that's fine. I think all of those things are things that we want your input on and we want your guidance on, because we don't know the vehicles like you do. So we can't just look at a list and say, oh, based on the mileage and the year, yeah, let's get rid of this, right? Or, you know, let's not replace it, because we don't know what the actual needs are of each department and of the district. So I think we do need your guidance, and it's not like, I don't think that we're capable of making that decision without it. But also helping us to understand what the impacts will be if we don't replace that vehicle.
And that is correct. That's why I want to give you, you're going to have my input, because I'm going to put you that vehicle with a chart of what the expenditures are. And I'm going to tell you, Commissioner Butler, based on Rescue 202, 2008 Ford F350 Rescue, 55,000 miles, it runs and operates at approximately X amount of miles a year, and it costs us X amount of dollars a year. That truck right now is only worth X amount of dollars. That way you get to see, okay, do we make a right call by to not replace that or replace that? That'll be up to you as the board to tell me, yes, I'm going to make my point as to what I'm saying. If you have vehicles that are not making 1,000, 2,000 miles a year, and we're spending money to replace them, then we don't need them. But if the vehicle is there and it's getting 10,000, 12,000 miles a year responding on calls, by all means, let's get them a new truck.
Chief, what do you have as far as in plans? When you start replacing vehicles, are you going to buy a certain vehicle, like let's say a 1500 4-door or a 1500 extended cab? What are your plans? What are you looking at right now for the replacement?
On something like that, I want to give the chiefs the input that they ask for, what they're requesting. However, at the district level, we have to agree that we have to look at the fleet and say, does that person really need an F350 4x4 Super Duty to not do anything with it? You know, even me as a chief, do I really, would it be feasible for me to say, Commissioner, I need a 2500 Silverado 4x4 fully loaded for something that I'm not going to go off-road? It's very rare. I don't. So I stick to the very two-wheel drive, and not all of us need to have four-wheel drives. Of course, there is chiefs. I'm going to tell you right now, if the time that comes that Chief Adler, I need to replace his truck, that guy responds on calls, I'm going to give him the exact same vehicle, because I know that vehicle's loaded. Yet at the same token, I see other departments that have F350s with absolutely nothing and very minimal to no usage. Those are the things we need to look at.
Chief, and I'd like to get some of the other commissioners' input on this. So I know we've talked about fleet replacement before, but that was more of a one-on-one case basis, like when a department needs a new vehicle and we either decide to approve it or not. Is there currently a policy that stipulates when and how vehicles get replaced?
The policy only says that vehicles for the district will be replaced every 10 years old or 100,000 miles if it's a gasoline engine, whichever happens first, or at 10 years, 150,000 miles if it's a diesel engine for the small fleet.
But we have no, so based on that policy, we have to replace everything on the list right now, right? Yeah. Okay. Then we don't have any guidance on a minimum requirement of vehicles or fleet for the district to maintain operations, or for each department based on size or number of volunteers or anything like that.
No, Commissioner, like you said earlier, this is the way it's been done years and years and years. And I want to give the departments the vehicles they need, but we have to be cognizant for ourselves. And that's why I'm bringing it up to you all, that I want to provide for you all the best tools to make the decision whether we need that vehicle or we don't. That's why I want to give you a better chart to say, and then if I have to, I'll take input from the chiefs as why that vehicle's not being used. Because if we're just parking these vehicles, it's costing money. If they're being used, great. If they're being used for the community to provide emergency services, great. What I'm looking at is why are we not averaging that vehicle? Why are we getting rid of a 2008 with 55,000 miles? My personal vehicle is a 2018, and I can tell you 55, I'm already there. That's just me personally.
Right, but I think what I'm trying to understand is, for example, in our policy to say for each district with over 30 volunteers or responding to this many calls per month, your minimum fleet requirement is this many trucks and this many whatever, like vehicles.
We do not have that. That was never something the previous boards wanted to look at. It was just give us the vehicles that we're requesting. And so the only thing I did do when I started here, this was about 6 years ago that I started, or 7 years ago, maybe now, taking over the fleet, there was no policy as how often we were going to replace. So the very first replacement of vehicles was in 2015. We replaced 15 vehicles because those vehicles were so old that it was not feasible for us to maintain them. Now, the thing that we need to look at, and I want to make sure that we understand this, is that we're not only looking at the age of the vehicle, we're looking at the usage of the vehicle. That's what we need to look at. And if we say the departments are using it, by all means, I think we should replace them. But if the usage is not there, it's like everything else in the fleet. We don't replace it because the use is not there.
Don't you think we should have some set of standards that would make this more objective to say each department needs at a minimum this many vehicles, and then us on top of that, if you can show usage and mileage, then that.
It all depends on the number of, how many calls do they make? How many volunteers they have? I think the way the chief is doing it, it's something still relatively new, and they're building up on that. Give me 1 sec. Hey, can you close the door, please? There's no standard, and I think Chief, with the assistance of Mario, he's the one that's looking at the fleet. You can come up with a standard, but I think this is more of a time and experience. It's going to take a little while to do that. I think they're going the correct route. I think, Chief, you've taken some units out of service without replacing them for that reason, because they're not used. They had too many brush trucks for a while. Whatever, the big trucks, the F-350 diesel pickup trucks. So you have been working that way. And I guess a standard will be eventually, but it's a slow process. I understand that. And on top of that, arguing with the volunteer chiefs, trying to convince them that they don't need certain vehicles.
And I think that's the hardest part. And I'll give them all that. A lot of them, Socorro was the very first one. They lost the most units, and they still have the most units. I think total I took away when I first started. I think Socorro lost, if I'm not mistaken, like 10 units. Yet they still have a lot. And if their vehicles are getting used to make all these calls, by all means, we should replace them. But it's when we have to look at if the vehicles are just parked there and not making calls, and we're maintaining them, and it's costing the district money, I think it's an unnecessary expense. We should fund everything they request if they're making the calls.
Well, one of the purposes I wanted to have this on the agenda for was in relation to the budget. So it's one thing to talk about the policy for vehicle replacement, and I think it's a separate issue to talk about how we're going to pay for vehicle replacement and maintenance. And so I don't know that we're ready for that. It doesn't sound like we are.
This fleet right here, Commissioner, I looked at it. I think we discussed this back in December, maybe, or January. I mean, I've lost track. I've had too many meetings before that to remember when we talked about this. But I did, you requested that for me to get more or less, and we were already at this particular line item right here was $2 million to replace it.
This was during the last budget session, so last year.
$2 million to replace all these vehicles right here, lights, siren, computers. And this goes in hand with, I'll be honest with you, I've got a request from Chief Adler. He wants tough books on his vehicles that don't have them. And I'm testing one out right here. Look, but these are right at $5,000 a piece. Another. So there's a lot of moving parts into these vehicles. My plan has always been, as we buy a brand new vehicle, we outfit it 100%. That way we don't go back and retrofit older vehicles with newer standards, because then it's going to cost us more money to try to do that. But as we buy fleet, we replace it, we outfit it completely so that the chiefs don't have to request all this. But
so how do we get to that point, Chief? So to where we're not doing this on a case-by-case basis, but there's actually a process and a policy put in place so that it's very clear to all of the chiefs about what they can expect.
And that's one of the things that we have to look at, and that's why I need part of your guidance, because I don't want you all to say that I'm making my own assumptions. That's why I want to bring up to you is why I'm telling you some of these vehicles don't need to replace and why some of them will be replaced. So out of the 23 vehicles, we might end up replacing 15, 16, 17. Looking at them, sorry, I'm looking at the list. And there'll be a reason why. And then moving forward, we will say, this is why you're getting X amount of vehicles. This is the lack of use. I'm trying to tell all the chiefs, and I've had this conversation with all the chiefs, use the vehicles so that when I go ask for these vehicles, they know they're being used for the calls. Because a lot of them are like, it's just there because we don't want to put miles on it. Well, that means we don't need it.
Hey, Roger, I agree. There is no solid algorithm to determine what vehicle goes, which one stays. It does come with experience. And that's why we rely on a lot of this. Adrian's right. Sometimes you have to look at the totality of the situation versus just the miles or the hours, or do we need to, like you said, do you even need that vehicle? All right, is that a luxury or a requirement? If we look at our budget, I agree, we got to look at some of this as far as is there something we really need, and can we realign those costs or put iCAD, because you said those tough books like $5,000 a piece, because I'm putting iCAD in all my vehicles right now, and I'm using iPads because I can't afford $5,000 a piece, So I'm cutting vehicles to do it. I had to give up 38 vehicles to get this resource. So it does come about aligning some money sometimes. I agree, but I wish there was a better algorithm for where Jackie's coming from too. But there's no solid 1 + 1 = 3 in this. If that makes sense.
So with that said, Commissioner, I agree with you on the iPad. I think it was the cheapest. I tried to, and I was looking for it. I think Eddie already took it, but I put it up and it didn't last. It's a $500 device. It did not last. It even bubbled up like it split in half in the truck.
Oh, wow.
So I tried it as an option. I'm still going to try it again. Maybe that iPad was a fluke, but like I said, I know the concern that Chief Adler had, because he told me, he's like, I don't want that to happen to my units. And at $500 a piece, I can replace more vehicles with communications like that. Great, but I think ultimately, I mean, these devices, and again, this one's on demo. These devices are going to make a difference. And one of the things that we're going to be looking at, as a matter of fact, I'm having an insurance while we're in the vehicle topic, is we're about to have a meeting with our insurance company. Our insurance will more likely be going up in price, and I'm going to tell you why. So when all these vehicles are purchased, we have vehicle replacement coverage. That means that the insurance will, if it gets totaled, it's going to pay us what it costs to replace it. So in the past, when the chiefs were in charge, and I'm not trying to bash them or anything, the amounts agreed upon were not what the vehicle cost. So a vehicle cost is not the same as just go buying the vehicle. It encompasses the lights, the siren, every piece of equipment. So a vehicle that we buy for $25,000 at the end, it might be a $50,000 vehicle. You need to understand that. So our insurance just paid us $25,000 for a vehicle that I cannot buy for $25,000. You know, that vehicle is actually going to cost us about $45,000 to replace. Where am I going to get the rest? We're going to have to come up with it. Now we're going to look at our insurance to make sure that all these vehicles that we have are at the correct replacement value. And this is by no fault of their own. It's just what, when they told them the vehicle replacement value, they only thought about the vehicle itself, not encompassing all the equipment.
So how do we move forward on the fleet replacement plan to incorporate it into this year's budget, which is due in 3 weeks?
Well, either you're going to look at this fleet right now, 23 vehicles, and then I'll give you a number that I think should be the ones that replaced, and you decide to go out for a loan and put it on a loan, because I'm going to tell you, these 23 vehicles were over $2 million with everything. Or you say, Chief, we really can't encompass all those vehicles. We're going to cut it back and then replace some of them now and some of them in next year's budget. So that's why it's difficult to create a 10-year plan or an improvement plan, because at the end of the day, we still have to provide the chiefs everything they requested as far as training, facilities, and everything else. So that's why we have to cut some of these vehicles out. Do we really need them?
Chief, I know that you said that it's $2 million, and we've got 23 vehicles to replace. Would it be realistic in replacing maybe 5 vehicles on a yearly basis? Have like a 5-year plan? What's your take on that?
If we can swing it on the budget, I totally agree. But at the end, remember, we're cutting special projects for the chiefs. This is something that we should say, we're going to replace, let's say 23 now, and those 23 should last us a good 8 to 10 years, hopefully. Okay. And we don't have to worry about those. And then there's another batch that's going to come up, and we should start in a cycle. That's the way we should be doing this. Because if we do 3 at a time, that means that we are either going to budget or we're going to take it out of whatever's left on the last year's budget. Like right now, whatever is left right now, either we're going to save it or we're going to say, hey, look, we can afford 8 of these vehicles right now with whatever's left. You're going to tell me, go ahead and do it, and we will do it. But then that's every year replacing X amount of cars. And remember, the district policy says every 100,000 miles or 10 years, whichever happens first, or every 10 years or 100,000 miles for a diesel, whichever happens first. So the thing is that we have to understand also is, do we want to continue to buy diesels that really are rarely used, or is it on a case-by-case basis? It costs more money to maintain a diesel.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more money.
Chief, what I think would be really helpful for us to make those kinds of decisions is to get a lot more feedback in terms of how much it costs to maintain, impact of it not being replaced to the departments, alternatives. So maybe there's a cheaper alternative, right?
You're not going to believe this, but I also looked at leasing the vehicles from Enterprise. That is something that Horizon Police is currently doing. They're on a lease program. The only thing that the lease does not cover is the emergency part of it. So that's something we would have to budget for. But that's something we could look at, and that way our fleet is continuously being replaced versus us owning them and absorbing all that cost.
Yeah. So we, you have to bring those ideas and those alternatives to us, especially if it's going to have a large budget impact. And then what I would like to see is all of those factors including what departments those vehicles belong to, and into a spreadsheet that's prioritized. So that we can say, okay, obviously these top 5 or 8 need to be replaced. The others can wait. And also, is that list current? Is that as of today? What needs to be replaced?
This is as of the 17th of this month.
Okay, so it is current. That's district wide. That's our list. That's our replacement list.
Right. And then remember, there was a lot more vehicles, but I had him remove the brush trucks and put them in a separate category and give me more information on those.
Yeah, so having a prioritized list with more details, budget impacts, and alternatives would be really helpful here for us to consider as soon as possible for the budget.
Yes. And just so you know, every unit here where it says unit, that tells us what department is running it. So that way it is, you can ask me what department that is, and I will tell you what department that is.
You
So
could put a little what do they call it? Like a key or a legend at the bottom so that we can just see it and know.
Okay. Sounds good on that one. So item number 15 is for informational purposes only?
Yes, and I'll request that this gets added to the next meeting's agenda as well.
Okay, item number 16, discuss and update ESD infrastructure. It says 32, but I'm going to clarify that. ESD number 2, infrastructure needs and capital improvement plan.
Yeah, so a lot of the same idea here. So, what are we doing to plan for some of our long-term infrastructure needs? Maybe not so long-term. What do we need to prioritize? What kind of 1, 5, 10-year plan do we have in place, and how should we be incorporating that into this year's budget, if at all?
And did you receive the other emails that I sent you as far as what we're looking at, as far as roofs, air conditioning units, the things that we never looked at as a district that we're going to be part of our infrastructure that are needed? There's lists already, and I have Mario also working on this. He's also keeping me abreast of what's happening. We're having a lot of these stations that are already 20 years old and nobody even realized it, but nobody ever puts in for the air conditioners. Now that we're handling and we're looking at that, I'm thinking the same thing. We're gonna have to do a yearly renovations, even if not needed right now, to be able to make sure that our facilities are good for another 20 years.
Yeah, I got your list. I would really like to see a master list, how many roofs, how many ACs, how many structural improvements do we need? How many renovations or upgrades or updates to facilities do we need? I know we've kind of checked off some of those outstanding items on the list this year, but what is priority, right? So how do we prioritize those projects, and how are we going to pay for them?
Right, and those are some of the things that we are also looking at. Just so you know, we found out that Montana Vista Station 2 also does not have water. There is water available there, but talking to Chief Glenn, that's not something that they ever foresaw was needed. So now we're actually looking to see how do we get water to that facility as well. So
right. So where are all of these projects?
I think some of those.
Right, where are they held? Who has that?
Those are things that we're finding out as we go along. This has just come up as we are doing the COVID testing that we were doing at that station, and I was like, we don't have a bathroom here, we don't have water, we don't have, and it's not something that I say we because we are part of the reason why we don't have it. The previous administrations that didn't think about those things, or we didn't plumb it for those things because we didn't think we were ever going to need it. But when this thing happens, now I don't have a way to provide restrooms for the first responders that are doing testing there. Now I have to figure out how. But I agree with you. These are being put in a list by Mario, but we want to give you a breakdown because it's a great idea for you all to see what we spend on per facility. Per facility to maintain them and to keep them running. what are we spending on ACs every year? And if we can, like I said, you saw the list, and I can share it with you all right now if you'd like to look at it, as to what we're talking about. Buildings that are 20 years old already, and they still don't, we never did anything with the air conditioners. They're starting to go out. So I understand what Ms. Butler's looking at, and it was difficult to put it together when we don't have the money. Either we're going to get into another big loan and do it now, or we're going to have to cut some of the special projects back and start doing some of these things slowly. There is no actual real way, because if the item goes down, if an air conditioner goes down at a major station, guess what? They're going to say need an air conditioner, and I'm going to have to come up to the board and say, we were going to do it next year, but we need to do it now. We're trying for all these items to last as much as we can so that we can plan, but they're starting to go out.
Yeah, but that's why we need a plan, so that we're not always just responding, but we're able to be proactive with these things, right?
Correct. So this year, I think we should replace, like Mr. Diaz said, if we can afford it. Remember, I was going to try to buy a couple of brush trucks this year, in my mind, thinking I don't need to buy that bumper. But with all this that Mario's bringing up to me to try to accomplish for all these departments, I don't think we're going to be able to buy any of those right now. But we do have to look at how we're going to do that. And I think we should do away with the practice we used to have, that the district would build these brush trucks. I think we should just be buying them straight out of a vendor and not have to. We're not here to build trucks. That's not what we do. It costs a little bit more money, but that's not what we do.
Chief, are you going to show the list?
Give me 1 minute. Can you all see it?
Not yet. There.
Yeah, it's up. It's up.
That's air conditioners. And so if we look at West Valley, that's a 20-year-old station. We've replaced one air conditioner unit. The others have begun to start going out. We've had our maintenance guy go out there and maintain them and try to get them running. So far we're able to keep them running. Station 2 also at West Valley, that station also has one swamp cooler, approximately 10 years old. Life expectancy of a swamp cooler. If we get 10 years, that's great. That's an easy replacement. That's not a refrigerated air. Socorro Fire Department has 6 units, 4 of them approximately 20 years old. 2 of them have been replaced. San Elizario, 5 air conditioner units, approximately 23 years old. So those are the ones that are starting to give out. Clinton Fire Department, 4 air conditioner units, 3 are approximately 19 years old. One of them was replaced in 2018. You might all recall that one. And so the list just goes on. And these are, expenditures. So one of the things that I also asked Mario to do is also contact Train to give us a rough estimate of what it's going to cost to replace all these at a Train level. Of course, there's always cheaper, but I'd rather present to you all a worst case scenario plan as to what it's going to really cost to replace those air conditioner units. Does that make sense? That way, if we go out for bid, we might get a lower bid, but we still replace them with that amount. And then again, go with that, here are the roofs. I mean, there's no easy way to break it down. We really have not been spending money on our facilities where it needs to be done. You all can't see that one, right?
Not
That's
yet.
it.
You can't see it?
Not the roofs.
Oh, no, I see the,
Okay, give me 1 minute. How about now?
There it is.
existing roof, existing roof, 25 years old for Fabens.
I'm sorry?
You know about the Fabens roof?
This is all roofs in the district, Commissioner.
Oh,
And it tells you what year they are. So most of these have already approached their life expectancy. So this is another huge expenditure we're going to have to do.
it says roof replacement, but then it talks about Clinton not having a bathroom.
What's that?
This is a list for roof replacement, but it talks about Clinton not having any bathrooms.
Yes, Station 2 does not have bathrooms. He's trying to figure out because there's no list for just bathrooms. So we have 2 stations that do not have bathrooms.
Try to sneak this up under the wire. Got it. Now it says Montana has no bathrooms.
Montana Vista Station 2 has no bathrooms.
Oh, Station 2, no one's out there.
We have trucks and volunteers do respond from there. So if they need to use the restroom, they gotta haul butt all the way to the main station.
Got it. Got it.
Same thing for Clint. If they need to use the restroom, they gotta go from Station 2 all the way to the main station.
Got it.
Well, thank you, Chief, for sharing the information. I'd like to hear your thoughts on how we can compile this and get a better understanding for budget impact and timelines. So, how can we prioritize the list? What needs to get replaced without question this year, and what wait a year or two?
And definitely, that's why I really thought that consolidating the budgets was gonna be the best thing because we can better manage the funds and better try to figure out how we can maintain these items here. And it's not anything that we want to make sure. I want to emphasize that it's nothing that we are not going to provide our departments the needed equipment or the needed training. It's just a better for us to go because at the end, as a matter of fact, I just had Eddie last week come in here, Chief, are we going to do what we did last year? And I was like, what's that? You're going to tell me to go buy all this equipment that the chiefs are requesting because the board approved them. So we're going to be in the time crunch. Remember last year we were supposed to replace a roof and an AC and the vendor did not come through and we ran out of time. That's why we need to better have understanding of our budget and where we can get the money from to be able to prioritize some of these. And if we have money left, I think I should go to the board and say, commissioners, this wasn't in the budget, but look, we have some money left and we should knock one of these out.
Chief, all due respect, I don't think that the answer to this is the consolidation. The consolidation might help, but we need to have a better grasp and way to manage the capital improvements that are needed within the district, regardless of whether it's in a departmental budget or not, right? So what is the process for staying on top of these, not just now, not just when the departments request them, but when we know that we need to do them?
Okay. You want to see this by next week?
if possible. I mean, I think that we need to. I mean, I'd like to hear from the other commissioners, but can we talk about budgets without taking into consideration the capital expenditures, including the fleet?
That's right.
Can we add
Because
this to
last
the
year we
special
really
meeting?
didn't. Sorry?
Can we add this to the special meeting that we discussed, or?
We can, but that's next week, and I don't know, Chief, if you and your staff have the time to put this together by next week.
I will get with my staff as soon as we're done with this meeting and see what we can get done and accomplished by then. Because the hardest part is going to be for us to say, we need to get people to go review all these roofs, give us a best case scenario, which ones need to be done now, and then what's the cost, so that I can have a number to present for you all. So we can definitely try. If not, we will put them in order of what we think is the priority for the district. Make sense?
Yes, I think that'd be a good starting place.
Okay. Item number 16 for informational purposes only. Item number 17, discuss and take action on the strategic planning for fiscal year 21-2023 and related to budget implications. Commissioner, I want to make sure that we put it exactly the way you sent it, but was it for 2020, 2021 budget?
No. The 2021 to 2023 was related to the strategic plan. So how do we make a 2-year or 3-year strategic plan for the district? I think the budget, I'm looking for how this might impact the 2021-2022 budget, right? So at the safety conference, there was a session on strategic planning for ESDs, and I attended that with Mariana, and it was really, really eye-opening and informative. I don't know that we've ever done a strategic plan in the history of the ESD.
Never.
And so some of the things that this gentleman was talking about, and I pulled up the website, I was able to track down the website, but they talk about, you know, an ESD's mission and vision for the future, membership values, identifying critical organizational issues, identifying strengths and weaknesses, right? A SWOT analysis of the district, developing long-term goals and objectives, customer needs, being able to identify and prioritize those, identify areas of needed enhancement, identify tools to meet those needs and enhancements, and implementation strategies. And so I think our discussions on the budgets and the fleets and the capital improvements all kind of highlight what I think is necessary for us as we look towards long-term planning instead of doing this month-to-month, kind of year-to-year.
You there? Commissioner?
Off.
She froze.
Damn, Adrian, cut her off.
That's not true.
Is it raining out there? Oh, you're not at home. Never mind.
No, I'm still at the office.
Frozen.
You call her.
Adrian got the doggone ultimate delete button.
Ah,
There she
There
is.
she is.
I was barely going to call you.
You there?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Houston, we got a problem.
I'm gonna tell her if she's gonna use her house as a backdrop, she needs to clean it. Hey, Hey, Adrian, do you recommend if our next that finance meeting, we all meet versus this fancy stuff here, or we all just could try to do social?
We can do
distancing at-
social distancing, can't we?
Yeah, we can meet. I'm asking, I'm not, you recommend.
I agree.
She's
What's
there.
that?
So continue, Ms. Butler. You,
The next agenda item. So anyway, I don't know where I cut off, but I'd like to see if we can,
We got everything.
put aside some funding for us to be able to either hire somebody like this firm that presented at safety to come in and help and guide us through a strategic planning process.
Ms. Butler, what was the name of the firm?
It is ESCI.
We don't have enough. Hey, we don't have enough money to buy a Ford. You want to hire a firm?
Yeah, that firm is going to be, that's one of the highest firms.
No,
Very
no.
expensive.
That's a good idea. Jack,
Okay.
I have one question. Do you have a sign in your house that says home?
What?
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't even know what it says anymore. Yes, you have good vision.
so when you get old, you can say, "Okay, I'm home."
Mm-hmm. It's for the kids. Practice their reading.
Sure it is.
What I will
So
do-
I don't, yeah, go ahead, Roger.
What I will do is I will call that firm to see if they can give us a proposal so that we can have a number in case you do want to put in the budget to see what it's going to cost. Is that okay with you all, commissioners?
Sure.
I'm good with it.
All right. Ms. Butler, item number 17, do you want to be for informational purposes only or?
I don't know if we need to take a vote to allow you to get that quote from them, or if we just do it, or just table it until next time, once you have the quote.
I think we should mark it as informational purposes only, and then we'll get that. It doesn't cost anything to get that, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay. Item number 18, discuss and take action on the timing and accessibility of boards and meetings. This was brought up by Commissioner Butler.
Yeah, I know that when COVID hit, we were all scrambling to find a time to meet, and somehow landed on 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesdays, and I imagine that that's not very accessible for the chiefs who usually attend the meetings to attend, as well as I think Teams has been better. Getting cut off a few minutes ago, notwithstanding, I think it's better than our experience with, what was it, the other one, Hype?
We're actually using both. We're actually, right now, currently, we're using both. And I think that's one of the things that's working a lot better, because we're broadcasting out of that one and we're having the meeting out of this one instead of trying to do both out of the same thing.
Right.
I think it was my fault in my Teams. I was just trying to use my government account for the Army to log in, and it wasn't the team's fault. It was an individual's fault.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to be meeting physically yet, or we should hold off on that. But really, the purpose of this was to see if we could consider pushing the meeting back to our 6 o'clock standard time to allow more people to attend. And also, I wanted to ask what measures we're taking to inform the fire chiefs and the volunteers and the staff about how they can access the meeting in case they want to log on and provide comment or have questions.
So as you can see the agenda item, it does have the link for where they log in to view the stream. One of the things that I did create for this is there's an actual email address in talking to not only Ken, because he also is part of an ESD, what they had issues with, because we were not ready for any of this. And one of the things that we have to look at, and I'm getting a little bit more acclimatized to Teams and how it operates. I think Ms. Butler froze again, or she fell asleep. it's going to allow us to better control the meeting, but I want to allow some other people to come in, but I also have to figure out how to not allow them to blurt out when you all are having session. Does that make sense? It has to be a control. Now the county has the same teams, but they have like two different IT people controlling that on their side. So it's a little bit difficult. So, but we're trying. We're trying to make changes. And then the other thing is not everybody within the district is within Office 365 to where they can use Teams to better manage them, because that way we can put the names to them and have control. Like I can see right now, you all are registered as guests, when it should say within our organization to be able to control part of the meeting and have a say, and allow other people to say out of the meeting to be able to control it. But I do agree, this one's a little, now that it's separated, it's a little bit better. I think it's going smoother. And we want to allow for people to come in. Just a way to control it. So we are working on that. And I'm also
Yeah,
looking,
I'm sorry.
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I've been, I think the El Paso County Commissioners Court and the city both use Teams to conduct their meetings, and I've been part of like either a presentation or public comment for each of them. And they make it very clear, not just on their website, but during the meeting, on how people can call in to participate. Even if you don't have Teams, there should be a conference call number and a PIN that you can use to do that. And so I just want to make sure we're doing those kinds of things, and we're making every effort to communicate effectively on how people can participate. Either if it's online, also posted on our agenda, something we say at the beginning of the meeting or during the meeting. I just want to make sure that since this looks like it's going to be a longer term solution, that we're putting those things into place.
And agreed. So one of the things that I'm looking at right now that we have the teams that we're trying to use, is I'm trying to figure out how to put the phone number that people can call into the Teams, because that's not a feature that comes with Teams. So I do have a company looking into that. So we are looking to merge into a different company to handle our email, so that we can all have Teams and be more centralized. And they're going to teach us how to make all this happen. So it's in the process. It's just,
Who's our IT guy?
well, we currently use, we're trying to use Macios. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Yeah.
We're trying to use
So
Macios.
we should probably have a staff person who can help with IT, or a consultant who could come in and figure these things out, right? Instead of it being you, Chief.
So that's why we're going to hire him or them to come and set it all up. But we're finding out that since a lot of us didn't have Office 365, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So we are trying to figure out how to add. They know how to add the telephone number. We're just, what's the cost involved for us to make it happen?
Now, would it be better, I'm just getting thoughts, for us to meet, and project that meeting for people to call in, or is it better for us to be separated, or?
Actually, right now, this is working out because I'm actually recording the whole meeting right now. I mean, I did record the last one, except agreed, Hype has a little bit of things. I got to go look for the file in a different computer, versus this one is going to save it into my email. So I can send everybody the video, and if you have questions, then this is the way it goes.
I mean, I think we can social distance every once in a while if we do need to meet, right? There at the office.
Right, and we can probably broadcast. One of the other things, again, Ms. Butler, way ahead of you, I'm looking to broadcast our meeting via YouTube, just like the county does it. So that's where these people are going to come in. That way there's an actual record on YouTube, because it saves all the videos of every meeting.
That would be great.
So we're trying. It's like the judge said the other day in one of the meetings I had, none of us were ready and none of us had the staff to do it, because even the county didn't have it. So
what do you think is the timeline before Macios could come in and make those implementations?
Macios just sent me the cost yesterday, so I got to review what they're trying to charge me, and if it's a doable amount, then it will be done.
So we can expect this on the next meeting agenda as well?
That's what I'm shooting for.
Okay. Thank you.
So item
yeah.
number 18, discuss and take action on the time and accessibility of the board meetings. So what action do we want to take on that?
I'd like to propose a motion to move the meetings back to 6 p.m. on the same schedule, via virtual or in person, depending on what's safest.
Right
Chief,
now, all
Chief-
meetings, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have a question for you as far as on moving the meetings and stuff like that. I know you've been running them during the day and at 3 o'clock. How many people does it take you to be able to run the meeting right now? Do you
Three.
have to have any other people on standby for you or that you're having to pay extra?
I have, there's 3 of us actually running this meeting.
Okay,
Right now, I'm sitting here moderating this meeting here with you all, and then I have somebody else broadcasting it through the Hive, and then I have somebody else taking the minutes.
okay. So with that being said, I mean, 3 people is what it would take you. 2 other people, or is that?
2 other people.
2 other people. Okay. We were doing it before at 6 p.m. and we were paying for them as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, I mean, if it doesn't entail more people than what we were doing before, I mean, I don't see why we can't go back to 6 p.m. I mean, I don't have a problem. I mean, I can do it at 3. I can do it at 3 p.m. I can do it at 6 p.m. Doesn't matter. I'm good. I'm open with whatever needs to be done. I mean, service is our main issue. We serve the community. I understand this Butler as far as what she's saying, that, you know, we have to be accessible, and if they have any comments or anything, you know, they can call in. So, and I know you're working on it, Roger. I know you're working on it, Chief, and that's great. That's great.
Again, the only thing that these were not budgeted anything, so it might cost us a little bit of money, but we're gonna try to get it all done.
So 6 o'clock, I'm like Commissioner Diaz, it doesn't matter for me. It can be 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever time. But as Ms. Butler stated, we do it also for everybody else, for the volunteer chiefs. Maybe they can't do it at 3 o'clock. And that is important, that they could participate.
Yeah.
And yes, and just so you all know, my goal is to, as a matter of fact, I have a call into the county's IT department to see what they can give me as to how they did it to broadcast all this, because maybe that's something that we can maybe do a joint effort with the county, maybe at a lower expense, I don't know, to help us set it all up, and then we take it from there. So I'm looking at every avenue. Mackios is the one right now looking to get us all into a different email to where we're all looking at Teams and having the same communications and putting the number into it. Because that was one of the things that I literally just got off the phone yesterday talking to him. I said, I want to put a number for people to call in and be able to comment on the issues.
At that point in time, who would take the call, Chief? Would you be taking the call, or would somebody else?
There would be a button here where I would allow these people to start speaking. Does that make sense to you all? I think it's a good thing to have. I think it's a way to do it. It's a learning process for all of us. The more we use it, the more we get comfortable with it. And you're right. We're going to be here for a while.
Yeah, I think we have to get settle into this new normal.
So item number 18, discuss and take action on timing and accessibility of the board meeting. So any motions for this?
Do we need to make a motion, or would we just do it on item 22?
I think we can just say this was informational purposes only, and then you all can, every meeting you can just say when they want it to be, and that's done.
Yeah, I think item 22 will cover it.
Like I said, the only thing, the accessibility, I'm already working on that, so I think that's a little bit better. And hopefully by next meeting, maybe by next week, we will already have all this up and running. I just got to give Macios and all them the rights to log into our former email carrier and transfer it to them so that they can do all the work. So I'm going to look at their bill right now, see what it says, and if it's over 2,000, Commissioner, it's not going to happen because I'll have to wait till next meeting, unless Commissioner, in accordance to the authority you all gave, Commissioner Santana or Commissioner Diaz approved the expenditure and ratified it at the next meeting. Does that make sense?
Or
Sure.
are we going to have a next meeting next week?
Yes.
So it could be an agenda item on that.
Yes, but if we want the accessibility for everybody already done and it's doable, then I have to get authority from Commissioner Santana, Commissioner Diaz. That's what you all as a board voted on, and the expenditures over 2,000, they can approve and then ratify it at the next meeting.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
I don't want you to look at, I saw your face. I was like, if it's over 2,000, I don't think it will be, but if it is, then we will get the approvals and then just make sure that you all vote on it next week. That way it's done.
All right.
All right. Item number 18 for informational purposes only. Item number 19, discuss and take action on the status of emergency reporting for all fire departments. Commissioners, this was an item that requested by Commissioner Avalos. He wanted to revisit that item. He wanted us to tell you, or for me to tell you who has not completed. So I can tell you that as of my last check, all departments were, well, not all departments, 5 of the departments are completed their last 30 months of emergency reported and downloaded to the state. I only have one department that is right now not completed anything for the last 30 months. I think they might be maybe 26 months pending, and it's San Elizario.
Chief, I got a question on that. At that point in time, with the recording not being done or reported all the way closed out, does that, we're not up to state standards, correct?
We're not, that department is not actually reporting anything. And remember what I'm telling you, all departments are caught up to the last 30 months. That doesn't mean that they're caught up 100% prior to that, but the last 30 months they're caught up, except that one department that has absolutely nothing. They're running calls, they're not being filled out, they're not being entered into the computer, and I'm sorry, that's just the way it's gotta be.
Paid staff, are they turning in their?
So the way it is right now, the volunteer chief, again, has to review each report and lock it and make it closed. Our staff, our paid staff is entering their reports and making sure they're in there, but nobody's going in there to review to ensure that they're locked and closed out.
What's the reason for it? Do we have any reasoning?
I can't speak for Chief Treviso or why they're his 30 months. If you like, I can log into the computer to emergency reporting for that department so you all can see what I'm talking about, and that way you guys get a better understanding.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I'd love, I think if it clarifies stuff, I'm for it.
Because we discussed this a couple months ago, same issue, right?
Right. Give me a minute, I'm trying to remember all these passwords that I have.
So what can be done, Chief?
Give me 1 minute. I'm about to show you what I'm talking about. Can you all see this screen already?
Yes.
Yes.
So if you look at Sanelli right here, this is currently Sanelli. I just ran a report of incompleted calls at all time. There is 3,093 calls outstanding. If you look at the red block, that means that the call has not been reviewed, logged, and closed out.
But everything has been turned in, correct? Even by the paid staff and.
If you look at the ones that are highlighted in bold, it's most likely our paid staff that have entered information, and it's awaiting review.
And that's on the chief, correct?
That is on the chief.
We start holding those chiefs doggone accountable then.
So I can go back, let me see, I'm already page 20, 25, 30,
Wow.
and I'm already,
And it's not the chiefs that close it out. It can be assistant chiefs and
correct.
lieutenants.
$78 pages, and it goes all the way back to some calls in 2000.
Well, there's a big jump from 2000, 2010, 2015.
You know, Chief, one of the biggest things that I see on this is people that are with the fire department and that have left, and these reports not being completed.
Correct. So here are Sanelli's downloaded into the state infers. So right now they have 3 months completed out of the possible 30 that are on this list, but they have not been, oh no, they've been exported. So everything else, if you see not yet reviewed, this is how many calls in the last 30 months have not been reviewed. This is how many calls need to be exported into the state.
Hey, Roger, I'm assuming you engaged on this. What has been the response from the chiefs?
Well, I offered the same response to Chief Treviso as I did to the other chiefs, that we would help them out here at the district level to get the ladies to help out. And I had the ladies going, looking at all these reviews. There's people that are gone, and all we could do is close out the call and just hit review because these people are no longer here. One of the major issues that I saw with the departments was the fact that they're cycling the badge numbers. And by cycling the badge numbers, I'm going to say that it created a mess for the volunteer departments, because we've had the same member that's still there have 3 different badge numbers, and then that badge number has been reissued to somebody else. So we don't even know who did that call, because it's all it is a badge number or a unit number.
Wow.
So every time that they come in, they're given a number, and then as they last in the department, if you would, they are given a higher hierarchy number, if you would. So if you come in, let's say for Fabens, you're at 350, 350, and as you complete 6 months, you might be 320, and then as you last a year, you're at 310, and so on and so on. So that same individual has had so many different badge numbers or call numbers to where it's difficult to close out some of these calls because nobody closed them out and nobody knows who it was.
Wow.
So even for us here at the district, for all the departments we helped out, it was a mess. But we offered the same offer to Chief Treviso, and he said he would handle it. So I know that Commissioner Avalos wanted to hear this out, but I guess he had to go into work and it was going to be a little bit longer. So this is where it's at. I know that for sure the previous departments are at least 30 months caught up.
Chief, what is your recommendation? Well, or let me ask you this first. Have you had a discussion with Mr. Treviso, Chief Treviso?
The only thing that I had is when I asked him what was going on, that he would handle it. And like I said, I'm showing this because it has not been handled.
And how long ago was your conversation with him?
I'm thinking,
What was it, 2 meetings ago, Commissioners, that we had this conversation?
yes,
So
Okay.
2 months?
I'm thinking they haven't closed out the one from 2001, 20 years ago, it's not gonna be closed out in the next 5 days. You know what I'm saying? There's gotta be a holistic plan. I'm sure we're talking about Ray, but I'm sure it's across all stations that have delinquent closeouts, correct?
No, actually, so what I did actually in most of the departments, let me show you this. And I know that the departments are now keeping up with it because if I go to the export setting of it, and I know they're listening, so they know this because I've told them. My name is now down here as one of the recipients of the export list. So I know that the chiefs are keeping up with it because I get an email when they've exported the reports. So I know they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
See, this year, from January till now, that nothing's been entered, correct?
So I can run a report right here for you all right now. Let me see. You want to see from just January to now?
Yes.
So right now it shows 981 calls.
Shit. For just this year alone.
Commissioners, please make sure your mics are muted.
Right.
Sorry.
So if you look at them, some of them, there's like 3 that were completed here. So 981 calls, but if everything that's green has been reviewed and locked, but everything in red has not. So, I mean.
Chief, we can't see your screen.
You can't see it?
I can't see it, no.
I'm sorry.
No.
There you are. Can you see it now?
The ones that are green, you said are already closed, correct?
Reviewed and locked, yes.
Okay.
This is for all the districts?
No, this is only for San Elizario that is not completed as per what Commissioner Avalos wanted to look at, who wasn't in compliance with the calls. And like I said earlier, I know that the chiefs are keeping up with it, the other ones, because I get an email when they do an export.
What can we do about this, Chief?
I think you all should put a time frame for San Elizario to have this completed. This is, I mean, I'm telling you.
Chief, I don't know. Should you put the time frame on them and we support you?
We could do that. It doesn't matter.
If we put a time frame on it and he blows us off, there's no recourse. Well, there is, but it's
Yeah.
it includes a farewell.
I can show you just in the last 30 days. Let me see, incomplete calls, last 30 days. So right, just in the last 30 days, 108 calls.
And how many's not closed out? All of them?
All of them.
That's impressive.
That's why you all made the policy that all volunteers themselves will enter the call, because the chief should just go in there, review it and lock it and send it on its way. Each individual that is running the call, the head of the incident commander, whoever runs the call, should be the one entering all his information and just waiting for the chief to approve and close out the call. And if you see, like I said, the ones in bold, I can guarantee you this is our paid staff because they were given the directive and they're entering the calls. They're just waiting for somebody else. Like I can click on this call and I can tell you, see, the basic, the narrative, the file has been done, but there's these items that have to be entered and then locked. This is Michael, assigned to Michael Martinez, so.
Hey, Chief, so you can go, I mean, It would be up to you, and if they're not compliant, then I guess the board would have to discuss it, right?
Okay. Well, like I said, this agenda item, Commissioner Avalos had requested it because since the last meeting, I gave you an update that said that one department was not up to date, so he wanted to hear it again, how much they had done. So that's why I wanted to make sure that you all understood that most departments are caught up to the last 30 months,
30
and
days.
now they're keeping up with it.
So do we need to?
You can take a motion to say something, or you can take a motion to make me handle it. That's fine. I can do that, or just leave it at that, and then I'll send an email out to Chief Treviso, giving him a time frame, and if it's not completed, then you all will take action.
That sounds like a plan, I think.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we can keep looking at this. You keep looking at dog crap, you're gonna still see dog crap, so. There's no excuse for that.
So item number 19, discuss and take action on status of emergency reporting. Do you want to leave it no action taken?
No, actually,
To have you give them a
Direct,
I have a motion by Commissioner Santana to have me send a notification to Chief Treviso.
with a timeline. Hey,
timeline, what are you thinking on the timeline, chief? About 30 days?
I think 30 days.
Okay.
Now, do you want the last 30 months, or do you want
I think 2001 was the last one, right?
2000?
2000. Do we need to go to 45 days and make sure he clears all of it?
That's a lot.
Or 60 days?
It's gonna be a full-time job.
There's 3,093 calls since the very last one, which was in
So realistically, how long does it take to close one out?
minutes, like a minute. I mean, there is absolutely no reason. 2000 was the very last one.
Okay.
130 of 2000, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
There is absolutely no reason why, with the amount of technology that we provide every department, the amount of computers that we buy, the amount of cell phones, iPads, tablets, that we shouldn't have these closed out immediately.
And maybe 30 days. If it only takes minutes to do, there's 3,000 of them. I got it.
Well, the problem is it takes minutes to do, but you're gonna have to figure out how to close out a call from 2000 that you absolutely don't know who it was. Because I can click on it, watch, and I can tell you this was, I think this call was even incorrect because it says Marcos Rodriguez. That's one of our staff. Marcos Rodriguez did not start with the district till 5 years ago.
How about till the end of this fiscal year? So you give them until the end of September to get it all done.
The only thing is, don't you think they're gonna fall they're gonna fall behind even more if they don't get it done? And at that point in time, if something were if Chief had to give him a directive at that point in time, we're gonna have to pick up the pace there. Fill in the blanks. As it is, it's 3,000 and something right now that need to be done. And I mean, just this year alone, in 2020, he said there was 908, correct, Chief?
Something like that. I can run it again.
It was 908, I believe, what he said, Ms. Butler.
Right.
981.
981, okay.
Just from the beginning of the year to now.
Wow.
I mean, do we think that they're going to be able to do it in any amount of time? 30 days, 60 days, a year?
Well, some of the ladies here, when I put them to help out the other departments, they were really going through their list and punching out calls, and I mean, it takes minutes, but like I said, a lot of these calls will have to be reviewed by the certain individuals that were most likely there. And we're talking about even the ladies that were in the departments were not there in some of those years. So who knows who these people were?
So is it even realistic to ask them to close out all 3,093 calls?
I would just say the last 30 months. That's what every other department did to get them going in the last 30 months.
But we're still accountable for the last, all of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Then we pass that, I think we should pass that accountability on to the chief to execute his staff to get that finished.
All right, thank you. Well, I mean, you can't close them. There's certain information they have to put in there, and you can't falsify those documents.
Oh, okay.
So the way
There is
the
a-
way the other
I got you.
the other way the calls were closed, and of course, like on this one, look, all they need is the people's there. It does say who was there, or what the narrative is. So you don't have to add a narrative per se, because you kind of look at these calls, and it says rescue 605, 620 operating. I don't know who 620 is because they might have changed already. But they can go back, and the chiefs can go back and kind of put us back in, let's say on this call, back in 5/19 of 2020, and say, oh, that was so and so. Put a name to the thing and close out the call with the narrative that's there of what happened in the call. You can't add the narrative of what patient contact was made unless the volunteer is there. But you can definitely close it out.
Chief, I think this is on you. I mean, you give us your directive here on what you want us to do. The buck stops with you.
I think right now, to kind of get this going, we need to have at least the last 30 months going.
Okay.
Because going back to 2000, who knows who it was?
Yeah.
The last 30 months, I think, would suffice to get the department. Now, if they lose control after those 30 months, it's time to find somebody else.
Yeah, I agree to what Adrian said. We don't want them to falsify anything if there's requirements there. So.
And then some of these calls might be a no response. So that could be an easy fix as well, because it's a no response, no rig went out, there is no time, so they could be closed out. But like I said, I agree with Ms. Butler. It'd be impossible to do all the way to 2000 and try to figure out who went on those calls. I say if we focus on the last 30 months, and if they lose control again, then we have a problem.
Agree.
All right, so we'll do that, Chief.
So right now, there's a motion for you to discuss and take action on the status of emergency reporting, for me to send notification of we want the last 30 months closed out by 30 days? By next meeting? By the next regular meeting, which is
Okay.
scheduled by 30 days, within 30 days. The last 30 months and 30 days. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Butler,
Aye.
Commissioner Santana,
All right.
and Commissioner Barnes.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 20, discuss and take action on the fees for dispatch services from the city of Horizon for fiscal year 2020, 2021, it should have been. Commissioners, I don't know if you had a time to review your proposal, and Chief McConnell sent us what it's going to cost for next fiscal year. Any questions on item number 20?
See, mine says criminal trespass.
No. Item number 20?
Yeah.
You're probably looking at an old agenda.
One that was sent to me. All right.
Give me 1 minute.
Got it. Yeah, have our own dispatch.
Chief, is this supposed to be in the Dropbox?
Yes, is it not?
No, I can't find it.
Give me